So in the last class we had completed up to tsunami. Okay, any major doubts? कुछ पढ़ पाए जा करके? This much is clear. Can I expect plate tectonic वाला ये that whole part including tsunami up to this much is clear to all of us? No major doubts? पक्का? मैं क्वेश्चन पूछूं? चलो रहने दो, टेस्ट सीरीज में पूछ लेंगे. ठीक है. So good. So now we have to move on to the next part of this, the content. So could you read the chapter number 5 of NCERT? वो रॉक्स वाला चैप्टर पढ़ पाए कोई? कौन नहीं पढ़ पाए? सच बता दो. अगर पढ़ लिया है सबने तो फिर आगे बढ़ेंगे, आज छोड़ देंगे. हाँ, नहीं पढ़ पाए? आईएएस का तैयारी कर रहे थे, टाइम नहीं निकला होगा. आई कुड गेट इट, है ना. कहाँ निकल पाता है टाइम? चलो ठीक है, देख लो देख लो आईएएस का तैयारी करना है या एनसीईआरटीज पढ़नी है ना. चलो good. So let us start with this rocks and minerals part, but before I start with that, there are few things that we have to just wind up before we move on to this chapter number 5 and then chapter number 6. As you can see, most of you, we are going as per the NCERT sequence, starting with your first NCERTs, right? At many places people do start with different sections. I prefer doing it this way because there you are starting with the first part of the NCERT, है ना. कई जगह पे इंडिया से स्टार्ट होता है कुछ. So I think that might be slightly easier to you in terms of, because you know India, है ना. तो इंडिया स्टार्ट करके आपको ये बताना कि माउंटेन्स यहाँ पे है और ये, और ऑल दोज थिंग्स, दे माइट बिकम स्लाइटली इजियर टू बिगिन विद एंड you might find slightly more interesting. But I feel that anything should be done in the order that it is. It's always better to do things in the order that they have developed, so that you can understand the conceptual parts first and then the application, because India is basically an application. In geography application कहाँ हो रहा है? कोई भी थ्योरी जो आप पढ़ रहे हो उसका एप्लीकेशन अर्थ पे ही हो रहा है, the different regions. So reading like a region like India would be an application of what you have learned. So until unless you have learned the things, application करके directly application दिखाएंगे, मे बी देखने में अच्छा लगेगा, है ना. एक्सपेरिमेंट्स देखने में तो अच्छे लगते हैं, बट कई बार समझ में नहीं आते. ठीक, तो it's always, I feel it's better that we go in this sequence, and I will continue like this only. And as I am finding in your class also, as in the other classes, that you people are pretty comfortable, right? So ये land वाला part is about to get over. So can I assume, ठीक है ना, मतलब कुछ पक्का कोई गड़बड़ तो नहीं लग रहा है? हाँ, सब कुछ समझ में आ रहा है, लग रहा है कि हाँ ज्योग्राफी भी हो सकता है, ऐसा फीलिंग आ रहा है? हो जाएगा, ज्योग्राफी भी हो जाएगा. चलो ठीक है, तो अगर कल से मैं क्लास नहीं भी लेता हूँ तो भी हो जाएगा. बोलो हो जाएगा सर. ऐसा नहीं 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 नहीं, मेरे कहने का मतलब ऐसा नहीं है कि मैं नहीं लूंगा, बट ऑल आई एम सेइंग इज कि सर वो फीलिंग होना चाहिए कि यहाँ तक नहीं, आगे भी हो जाएगा. कोई भी दुनिया में हो ना हो, किसी से कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता, इतना कॉन्फिडेंस खुद पे होना चाहिए, समझे. इसीलिए मेरा काम यही है, आपको इतना कॉन्फिडेंट कर देना कि आपको ये लगना चाहिए कि हो जाएगा सर. ठीक है, ऐसा बोलना है खुद को, हो जाएगा. कभी भी किसी पे बहुत ज़्यादा डिपेंड मत करना. लाइफ में अगर डिपेंड करने के लिए कुछ है तो सिर्फ आप हो. ये अच्छे से याद रखो. अगर कोई कहता नहीं मुझ पे डिपेंड हो, मैं यहाँ तक पहुँचा दूंगा, बोलो सॉरी, बाय बाय, नहीं होना है. ठीक है. वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट लेसन. If you ask me one most important lesson from my class, it would be this. कभी भी किसी पे डिपेंड नहीं होना. ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है जो आप नहीं कर सकते हो, कुछ भी. ठीक है. यूपीएससी का तैयारी में मुझे बायोलॉजी, जहाँ मैंने जीएस पढ़ा था वहाँ पे बायोलॉजी अच्छा नहीं पढ़ाया था. मुझे पढ़ना था, क्योंकि ज्योग्राफी के जैसा बायोलॉजी भी मेरा एक फियर था 10th के बाद। ऐसा ज्योग्राफी फियर था, वो भी फियर था। ज्योग्राफी का आई फाउंड अ गुड टीचर, दे टॉट। बायोलॉजी आई कुडंट, बट आई स्टिल read, and I'm relatively much better than what I was. ठीक है, so that gave me the confidence कि कुछ भी कर सकते हैं, right? और that then I applied it to different fields and I found वो सही में आप कुछ भी कर सकते हो. There is nothing that you can't do, right? It's all in you. You just have to, in the process of learning, the most important thing is asking the right questions. You know, that's the most important thing. You should always ask the right question to yourself. Right question का मतलब क्या है? Every question is right, but then what makes a question further right? It's timing. This is what you call as logical questioning. So if your questioning is logical, step by step, if you are always asking the next step question, you are not jumping steps, right? So in your sequence of asking, learning something, ask yourself logically right question. जैसा आप लोग कई बार कुछ क्वेश्चन पूछते हैं, बोलते हैं ना अभी मत पूछो. आई एम नॉट सेइंग आपका क्वेश्चन इज रॉन्ग, द टाइमिंग इज रॉन्ग, राइट? देन आई रादर देन योर क्वेश्चन आई पुट गिव टू यू अनदर क्वेश्चन एंड देन यू आंसर. आपने अभी तक क्लास में रियलाइज किया ज्यादातर क्वेश्चन का आंसर आप ही कर रहे होते हो. मैं आपको बहुत कम चीजें ही बताता हूँ, पता नहीं आप लोग ये रियलाइज कर रहे हो या नहीं. मैं बहुत कम चीजें ही बता रहा हूँ, मैं ऐसे ही पैसा ले लेता हूँ आप लोग से. क्वेश्चन पूछने का पैसा वो तो आपको लेना चाहिए, है ना? उसके लिए तो आप आए थे, सर हमारा मन में बहुत सारे क्वेश्चन है, हमको आंसर चाहिए, आप पैसा ले लो और आंसर दे दो. यहां तो उल्टा ही हो रहा है, पैसा भी आपका, आंसर भी आप ही दे रहे हो. चल क्या रहा है ये? ठीक है, तो चल ये रहा है दैट यू आर लर्निंग probably to ask the right questions. ठीक है, so and that's the only thing. If you learn that thing, that will help you to keep asking right question. Then you don't need a teacher. The teacher's task is to make you, in a position where you can yourself ask, अच्छा इस topic में next question क्या होना चाहिए? What should be the next thing? Will it be relevant for the exam? What is the answer to this question? You find that, then the next, then the next, then the next, and you've done it. ठीक है, so why? Because there are lot many things which I might not also be. इस process में the way I'm doing things, there would be things which I might not be covering in the class. Right? Now how do you cover those topics? कुछ topic मैं करूँगा which are conceptually very, slightly deep. Some topics which are not so conceptually deep, which are maybe factual, I might not touch. Right? And I'll ask you to read yourself. जैसे मैंने कल आपको रॉक्स का चैप्टर बोला, पढ़ लो. Then I told you उसमें 3-4 इंपॉर्टेंट चीजें हैं, वो देख लो. ठीक है, तो ऐसा आगे भी होगा. Then how will you do those chapters? आपको खुद ही पढ़ना है. ठीक है, जिस तरह से आप यहाँ पे क्लास में अटेंड कर रहे हैं उसी तरह से अप्लाई द सेम लॉजिक्स देयर एंड देन ब्रिंग मी दोज लॉजिकल क्वेश्चंस टू विच यू डोंट फाइंड एन आंसर. ठीक है, दैट यू कैन डू इवन व्हेन द क्लासेस आर ओवर. लॉट मेनी स्टूडेंट्स आस्क मी फ्रॉम प्रीवियस बैचेस, सर ये वाला टॉपिक में आपने ये बोला था पढ़ने को, आई कुडंट गेट एन आंसर टू दिस. दैट्स द वे टू से, रादर देन सेइंग सर मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. समझ में नहीं आ रहा है का इसका मतलब ये भी होता है यू आर नॉट ट्राइंग. ठीक है, राइट क्वेश्चन वुड बी, सर मुझको इसमें ये नहीं समझ में आ रहा है. दैट्स अ अप्रोप्रिएट क्वेश्चन टू आस्क, नॉट सेइंग दैट सर मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. ठीक है, सो सर आप ये सब क्यों करो, सुबह जल्दी जल्दी स्टार्ट करो टॉपिक. मैं कर सकता हूँ बट, और करूंगा ही ऑब्वियसली another 5 minutes मे बी, बट आई एम ऑल्सो ट्राइंग टू मेक यू अंडरस्टैंड कि ज्योग्राफी में कुछ चीज़ें जो हम आगे नहीं पढ़ेंगे, मान मे बी जैसे इंडिया के अंदर कुछ चीज़ें मैं आपको खुद बोलूंगा खुद करो. वर्ल्ड वेजिटेशन आई डू, इंडिया वेजिटेशन आई आस्क यू टू डू योरसेल्फ. देयर इज अ चैप्टर इन योर इंडिया एनसीईआरटी, चैप्टर नंबर 5 इफ आई एम राइट, वेजिटेशन. सो आई माइट आस्क यू वो खुद पढ़ो. वाई? बिकॉज वर्ल्ड वेजिटेशन हमने पढ़ लिया कॉन्सेप्चुअली. ठीक है, सो जब आप उसका कॉन्सेप्ट समझ चुके हो तो इंडिया में आपको खुद अप्लाई करना है. ठीक है ना? अरे डू यू गेट इट? राइट. सो when you come to the class, also try to see what is different in this class which is making me understand things which I couldn't understand earlier. You should also be asking yourself this question. ठीक है, अगर आपको इसमें आ रहा है, that's why I keep the first question from me to you is क्या आपको समझ में आ रहा है? आप लोग बोलते हो हाँ आ रहा है, पर पिछली बार क्यों नहीं आया था ज्योग्राफी समझ में? तो कुछ तो अलग रहा होगा ना. What is that different thing? तो आप कर क्या रहे हो क्लास में ये भी देखो. Don't only write in your copy, also learn the trick of learning, because there are lot many things in this UPSC preparation which you will not find in the classes, है ना. तो वो सब आपको खुद करना है. तो वो सारा ट्रिक यहीं सीखते जाओ धीरे धीरे कि क्या हो रहा था, सर किस तरह से पूछ रहे थे, बता रहे थे, so that, and not only me, the different teachers. Okay, ठीक है, very good. So now let us further go beyond this. So if you have understood this much, we have put dots on a page, right? All the content that you have written, right, is like putting dots on the page, right? On a big canvas, you have made different dots, right? And then gradually, finally, how do you make the final picture? You connect all those dots. और स्टीव जॉब्स का एक स्टेटमेंट है, कनेक्टिंग द डॉट्स. रश्मि बंसल ने उसके ऊपर बुक भी लिखा है, कनेक्टिंग द डॉट्स, है ना. तो कनेक्टिंग द डॉट्स का मतलब क्या होता है? ये फेस सुना है, कनेक्टिंग द डॉट्स? क्या मतलब है इसका? फर्स्ट आइडेंटिफाइंग द डॉट्स, है ना, कि डॉट्स है कौन कौन सा. दैट इज लाइक गेटिंग डिस्क्रीट नॉलेज about different things you pick up. अच्छा, ये टॉपिक, ये टॉपिक, ये टॉपिक, ये टॉपिक, ये टॉपिक, ये सब टॉपिक, ये सब टॉपिक, like that. And then how do you connect the dot? How do you connect the dot? You join them, है ना. So that joining thing gives you a bigger picture. अच्छा, from these dots I can make this kind of image. जैसे आपने बचपन में बनाया था ना, that dot to diagram thing या image thing, वैसा है. अच्छा, from this I can make a cat, maybe from this I can make a house. Okay, so then you get the full picture. Okay, those dots were ultimately making a house. ठीक है. So in plate tectonics हमने अभी तक क्या क्या पढ़ा? If I ask you, you learned about the lithosphere, the plate, etc. Then you learned that there are movements from inside, and those movements are doing different type of processes, and those processes are creating different types of formations on the Earth's surface, है ना. So last formation that we saw was your earthquake and volcanoes, and then the tsunami. Tsunami was another phenomena. It wasn't a formation, it was a phenomena, right? So it's some kind of a action which takes place thanks to the plate tectonic or related movements. Okay, and then we also saw that it's not always plate tectonic which is causing a tsunami or earthquake. Tsunamis or earthquakes could also be caused by man-made causes, right? And not always the energy coming from inside the earth. Maybe many times the energy might come from outside the earth. तो ये सब अभी हम समझ गए हैं, है ना. इतना तो समझ में आ गया. Very good. So basically now if I ask you that what is the dominant force or energy source for all the plate tectonic related activities? हाँ, the energy source कहाँ पे है? अच्छा, first tell me where is it? Where is the major energy source or force source for all the prominent activities of plate tectonics? कहाँ है? Interior of the earth, right? So we call such forces as, NCERT में एक और term है, that's endogenic, right? So all these forces which are mainly driving the plate tectonic are the endogenic forces. Do we understand this? इतना समझ में आ रहा है ना? So my next question is, on the earth do we only have endogenic forces, or do we have forces other than endogenic also? Other than endogenic hai? Tell me from where do they come? Outside? Outside, that is a term, right? So I'll ask you the term also, but where do they come from? From outside. What was the source of the forces from inside the earth? Source क्या था उसका? Radioactivity. Radioactivity was creating heat, and that was creating convections and mantle plumes. ये दो चीजें हमने देखी. So endogenic forces were mostly coming from convections and mantle plume. Clear? And the source was radioactivity inside the earth, right? Internal radioactive energy of the earth. Okay. And then you told me, sir, all these are your endogenic. Then if I ask you, Exogenic, as you said, you gave the word also, sir, exogenic forces which are from outside the earth. So which are these forces? कुछ example दे दो. Give me some example. Water, sunlight. अच्छा, water कैसा force है ये बताओ. How does it act like a force from outside? आप बोल तो रहे हो water, but how does it work like? How does the water force work? Water force, because of it, it's, if we just say weight, then almost everything has weight ना. Any mass has weight, तो सबका force होना चाहिए. One by one. So water force कौन बोलेगा? पहले आपको चांस दे, क्योंकि आपने बोलना शुरू किया, तो आप बताइए. I'll come to you. So if there were no dam, then there will be no water. One of the reason is the dam. Acha. Can you give me a natural example of the water? How water naturally acts as a force on the earth? I'll come to all of you. एक एक करके थोड़ा, मतलब एक एक करके आप कुछ एग्जांपल आप याद करो. यस, आप बताइए. Flowing water. So can we say flowing water? So does water naturally flow on the earth's surface? It does act, right? So we call it as flowing water. And what does flowing water do? Flowing water, it removes the material. If the speed of the water is there, it will remove the material. And when the speed gets slow, deposits the material. है ना? So water is one. So one of the external forces is water. Okay. What is the other one? Give me another. Air. Acha, how does air may act as a force? Winds. Very good. So water, running water, rather than just water, running water, air. And is it air or is it wind? So running air is wind. So running water, running air, that is wind. Or heat, sunlight. Acha, heat and sunlight. Do they act as forces? Is heat a force? It is an energy, right? And it will obviously act as a force. Okay, so heat also. What else? Sunlight हो गया ना? Very good. Gravitation. Gravitational force also. Is it a external force? Gravitation is an external force on the earth, or it is from inside the earth? Acts externally. Doesn't act internally. Does not cause the convection. Does not cause the sinking of the slab. करता है ना? So gravitation is a force कहाँ का है? पहले ये बताओ. Both. External force है. What from outside the earth creates gravity for the earth? Celestial bodies. अच्छा आप दूसरा gravity में चले गए. Okay. ठीक है, हाँ ठीक है. तो gravitational. But when you're talking of right now, let us keep aside the external bodies. Okay, and let us talk of the one which are related to the earth. Okay. External gravitation छोड़ देते हैं. So do you think gravity acts only outside the earth's surface, or does it also act inside the earth's surface? Both the places. So gravity तो दोनों जगह act कर रहा है ना. Internally also acting and externally. The source of gravity is inside the mass of the earth, but gravity is acting internally and externally. So we'll come back to gravity in a while. Gravity को भी side में रख देते हैं. External forces कौन कौन सा है? So you said running water, running wind, that is air, heat, और बोलो, और glaciers, because they are frozen running water, right? So glaciers भी है. But what is causing all of them to move? Rotation means movement. There is a cycle. There is a water cycle. There is a air cycle. What gives energy to these cycles to move? Where do they derive their energy from? Where does the water cycle get its energy from? Where does the air gets its energy from? So that it will create different pressures and the air will move. Sun. You know? So if you see the glacier, how is the glacier forming on the top of the mountain? What is taking the glacier to the top of the mountain? It is the evaporation. And what is causing evaporation in the ocean? Sunlight. Then it is creating condensation, clouds. Clouds are taking that, and then it is raining or snowfall, and that snowfall creates glaciers. ठीक है, तो उस cycle के अंदर भी sunlight है और sun's energy, right? So sunlight, as somebody said here, sunlight is the main source of all the external energy. So if you see your earth, there are two major energy sources. One inside the earth, we call that as endogenic. राइट, एंडोजेनिक, एंड दैट इज नॉट ग्रेविटी. ग्रेविटी भी है बट ग्रेविटी को अभी हमने साइड में रखा है. सो देयर इज वन विच इज फ्रॉम इनसाइड द अर्थ एंड देयर इज वन विच इज फ्रॉम, which is the one major energy source from outside the earth? The sun. The sun is the main driver. The sun is actually behind every other movement which is taking place on the earth. Just imagine it this way: if there was no sun, imagine there was no sun, what will happen on the earth? It will be frozen dead, right? No winds, no movement. Can you imagine? No glacier, no water, no air, right? No waves, कुछ भी नहीं होगा. So the whole earth would be freezing dead. Can you imagine? So sun is the major external source of energy. So once we understand this, that sun is the major so suppose this is the surface of the earth. ठीक है? Surface of earth. On the surface of earth there are forces acting from inside, and maybe you can draw with me, right? So these are forces acting from inside. If you need a subheading, because some of you might ask, sir, what is the subheading for this? We write the subheading as endogenic and exogenic forces, right? Endogenic and exogenic forces. Tsunami tak ho gaya hai, that's it. You put a line below that, put the subheading endogenic and exogenic forces, and then draw this. Okay, so surface of the earth, then forces acting from inside, we call them as endogenic forces. Yeah, good answers, all of you online. Yeah, it would have been, everything would have been frozen. Perfectly fine, online people. So forces acting from inside, we call them as endogenic. Endogenic forces. Right, and what is the energy source of these forces? हर force का एक energy source होता है. What is the energy source for this? The radioactive heat inside the earth plus the residual heat of the earth. What is the residual heat of the earth? Earth initially was too hot and then gradually it cooled down. So we know that presently outside is relatively cold but inside is still very hot. So that inside heat of the earth is called as residual heat of the earth. Okay, so there are two heat sources inside. One, the residual heat, and the second, the radioactive heat. Okay, so endogenic forces, energy source, वो भी यहीं लिख लीजिए. Energy source of this is residual heat of earth, residual heat of earth from previous heating or previous heating when earth was very hot, when it was formed. Okay, and second is radioactive material. Radioactive material. Okay, so these are the two energy source of this force. Okay, and what do these endogenic forces do? They cause different processes and phenomena and formations. Right, different processes, phenomena and formations. यही करते हैं. Right, now so if the earth surface was flat like this to begin with, पहला यहाँ तक बनाइए, then the next thing. These phenomena and all we have already done under as plate tectonics. लिख से चलेगा? Plate tectonic. Right, so under plate tectonic we read the different phenomena and processes. So now tell me, now you have to think and tell slightly. ये देखना है, थोड़ा सा ध्यान से देखो. This is the surface of the earth, and as you can see the surface of the earth, before we start applying these forces, we have drawn as a flat surface, right? Because there is no formation on the earth surface. Okay, no formation. And then the endogenic forces started applying. When the endogenic forces started applying, they started creating different processes and formation. So let me draw that in a bluish color. Okay. So what formations have you learned? Give me from the first one in plate tectonic. What was the first formation that we learned in plate tectonic? सबसे पहले हमने divergence पढ़ा था, and in divergence याद आ रहा है? So I need you to give me from that sequence and give me till the last. ठीक है? So the first one was a fault. So like that, a crack, a small crack. What else? Then block mountains and rift. ऐसा कुछ बना था. Can you see? Right. So blocks and rifts. यही से बनाया था ना हमने. और ridge. Okay. So then we had a sea floor and we had a ridge on the sea floor. ऐसा करके. Right. Something like this. And I'm drawing very small diagrams. Right. Yes. Because I have to show you the bigger picture. I'm making the dots. अच्छा तो अगला चीज क्या था? Gyots, islands, right ऐसा. ठीक है ऐसा कुछ. और बोलो हाँ हो गया उसी में. Sea Mount Gyot, trenches, very good trenches. ऐसा trench बन गया. Very good. और बताओ अगला. Then trenches. Then after this I think divergence was over ना यहाँ पे आकर के. और कुछ था? आपने sea floor spreading कर लिया? ट्रेंच भी बन गया. तो ट्रेंच जब बनना शुरू हुआ, सो देन फ्रॉम ट्रेंच विच स्पॉट कन्वर्जेंस स्टार्ट्स एंड इन दैट यू गेट द ट्रेंच. सो ओशियानिक ट्रेंच एंड देन आइलैंड्स. ठीक है आइलैंड्स एटसेट्रा. और उसके बाद वेरी गुड. सो यू कम टू द सरफेस एंड यू गेट फोल्ड माउंटेन्स. वेरी गुड. MOR एबिसल प्लेन्स. वेरी गुड ऑनलाइन पीपल. प्रिंस राइट. सो यू हैड द वी हैव ऑलरेडी मेड दैट. और क्या बना? माउंटेन्स. राइट माउंटेन्स, वॉल्केनिक पीक्स, ये सब बन रहा था ना. आई होप राइट. एंड देन वी हैड अर्थक्वेक एंड ऑल. ये सब कुछ राइट. सो इफ आई आस्क यू दैट व्हाट हैव द एंडोजेनिक फोर्सेस डन टू द यूनिफॉर्म सरफेस और इवन सरफेस ऑफ द अर्थ, what have they done? Initially we had a even surface and then we applied lot of endogenic processes. So what is the final outcome? Thanks to the endogenic processes only. What does the surface look like? The even surface, initially even surface, now looks like uneven. So can we conclude this? That endogenic forces primarily make the even surface of the earth uneven. अग्री करते हैं? क्योंकि अब ये लिखना है हमने, ये आप ही मुझे बता रहे हो राइट. सो एंडोजेनिक फोर्सेस मेक द इवन सरफेस ऑफ द अर्थ अनइवन. अनइवननेस ला रहा है वो, तो लिख लें. लिखे राइट. दैट हेंस वी कैन सी that the endogenic forces and processes primarily turn the even surface of the earth into an overall uneven surface by creating different formations such as चार पांच नाम लिख लो अपना तसल्ली के लिए, जो भी आपको याद आ रहा है ना. फॉल्ट, ब्लॉक, रिफ्ट, फोल्ड माउंटेन, वॉल्केनिक पीक्स, ट्रेंचेस, एबिसल प्लेन्स, रिजेस, वॉट एवर यू फील लाइक. लास्ट में एटसेट्रा लिख लेना. ठीक है, जो लेजी है वो 2-3 नाम लिख के एटसेट्रा लिख देंगे, जो थोड़ा ज्यादा एफर्ट डाल के लेट मी रिकॉल ऑल वो सब लिखेंगे, फिर लिखेगा लास्ट में एटसेट्रा का स्कोप नहीं बचा सर, इससे ज्यादा हमने पढ़ा नहीं था. ओके ओके, सो डू वी गेट इट? ओके, वेरी गुड. Now let us go to the next thing. Now if there were only endogenic, you don't write this, first understand then we write. If there were only endogenic forces on the earth, then by now the earth would have become a perfectly uneven surface. है ना, perfectly uneven होना चाहिए, हर जगह पे कुछ ना कुछ होना चाहिए था. But do you, and everything should have extreme heights, right? So the mountain should be super mountains, right? And the trenches should be super trenches. ऐसा कुछ होना चाहिए. But do you find that way? Do you find extremely high mountains? You might say, sir, अब और कितना बढ़ेगा? ठीक है, already 8 किलोमीटर पहुंच चुका है, right? But 8 kilometer in 8, so many million years is not actually. If there was no erosion on the Himalayas or any of the mountain, they might have been 3 to 4 times taller. So what you see is only nearly 25% of the remnant. ठीक है? Did you get it? It is like trying to begin to make a cake, and then while you are making the cake, कुछ बीच में से खाता गया, लास्ट में बस पेस्ट्री बचा. तो शुरू किया था केक बनाना, आखिर में पेस्ट्री बचा, लेकिन पेस्ट्री भी बड़ा है. ठीक है, तो आपको लग रहा होगा सर और कितना बड़ा हो सकता था, वो बड़ा केक के इतना हो सकता था. It's only because of the erosion that it has mostly, So what I'm trying to tell you is that if there were only endogenic forces, Earth would have been a perfectly uneven surface. But is it perfectly uneven? It is not, right? Everything has been scaled down. What is scaling it down? Exogenic forces. Which are the exogenic forces? You named a few, जैसा आप लोगों ने बताया, and their energy source was the sun's energy. So sun's energy is driving many other things on the surface of the earth, because of which you see movement. So anything which is creating a natural movement on the surface of the earth, right? Anything which is creating a natural movement on the surface of the earth externally is a exogenic force. So now tell me, which are the natural things which are creating movement on the surface of the earth? Natural, I'm not asking you of man-made. Natural major movements on the surface of the earth. Don't give me animal movements and migrations, right? Because in geography we keep away animals. Okay, so which are the major natural movements on the surface of the earth that you get to see? सबसे पहला wind, then running water, then glaciers. You know, I don't know whether you have seen glaciers moving. You can't see them moving because when they move, it is like an avalanche. But basically glaciers also are slowly moving only, right? They are moving. This is something that we have realized. And what else? Landslide. Okay, very good. Landslide. But landslide has a different cause. Landslide is the land itself moving. My question was, what on land is moving? Soil movement. As? Okay. So see, soil erosion, when we say it is because of something or it is in itself. Soil erodes by itself, or it is eroding because of some, because of. So that's what I was asking, right? So which are the major things which are moving on the earth's surface, not the earth's surface, on the earth's surface. So which are the other things which are moving on the earth's surface, because of which the earth's surface will also slightly move. So wind, water, that is running water, third glacier or BA. Go slightly to the coasts. On the coast you see the waves, and waves also hit the ground, and they many times hit, break the rocks, etc. So waves bhi move karta hai na, right? The coastal waves which are hitting the ground. Okay, so waves and sorry, tides. Okay, yes. So tides also move. They do move. Okay, even they create some formations, but tide ka formations bhi hai. I won't say nahi hai. Right? Tides do have an erosional and a depositional effect, which is similar to waves. So waves और tides को हम साथ साथ ले लेंगे. ठीक है? और cyclone is an outcome. Waterfall is an outcome of running water. Water current, as in कहाँ पे होता है वो, मतलब वाटर करंट कौन सा वाटर करंट आप बोल रहे हो? ओशियन करंट्स, ठीक है, ओशियन करंट्स ऑल्सो, बट ओशियन करंट्स मूव, मतलब वी विल सी इन योर दिस पार्ट वी कंसिडर ऑल ऑफ दिस इन योर वेव्स ओनली, राइट, ओशियन वेव्स, क्योंकि ओशियन करंट का लार्ज स्केल मूवमेंट का इफेक्ट बहुत छोटा रीजन पे नहीं होता है, ठीक है। तो ओशियन करंट्स जनरली डू नॉट अफेक्ट द लैंड एज सच, राइट, दे हैव अ डिफरेंट इफेक्ट, ठीक है। Ocean currents have waves in them and those waves affect the coast. For example, if the wave come and hit the coast, they might carry the sand, or they might deposit the sand, or they might continuously hit the rock and break the rock. Current will not do it. In current, wave will do it. ठीक है, right? So do we understand कितना हो गया? 4, and there is one more which many of us miss, which is the groundwater. There is groundwater movement also, right? Which we don't know. Right, so groundwater also tends to move, and why? Groundwater tends to move mainly due to gravity, right? So now if you see what is the role of gravity here, because some of you had this gravity thing in your mind, gravity has a dual role. It plays the role with endogenic forces, it also plays a role with exogenic. It is like Mother Earth's love, it's equal to everyone, ठीक है, that's why I compare gravity with Mother Earth's love. जैसा किसी मम्मी का प्यार होता है ना, वो सब बच्चों को बराबर है, तो ग्रेविटी भी अर्थ का लव है जो सबको बराबर है, 9.8 फिक्स, उसका वैल्यू भी है, ठीक है, राइट। सो इट डज नॉट डिफरेंशिएट, इसीलिए उसको हम ना तो मतलब वी नीदर कंसिडर इट एज ओनली एंडोजेनिक नॉर एज ओनली एक्सोजेनिक, बिकॉज इट प्लेज इक्वली विद ऑल, ठीक है। एंड द व्हाई आई आल्सो कॉल इट एज मदर्स लव इज बिकॉज लाइक मदर लव इट ट्राइज टू पुल एवरीवन टुवर्ड इटसेल्फ, है ना। मम्मी भी यही कहते हैं ना सबको, इधर आओ, सब इधर ही रहो, कहीं दूर मत जाओ, थोड़ी देर बाहर गया तो फोन करके, वो ग्रेविटी का कॉल होता है, ठीक है, ओके। सो ऑलराइट, सो नाउ यहां लिख लेते हैं। सो इफ वी सी forces acting from outside, forces acting from outside, let us write them. The energy source of this, energy source is sun's energy, sun's heat energy, right? The energy source is sun's heat energy, ठीक है। How does sun's heat energy come to us? In the form of, wow, photons. आप लोग मुझे बार बार टेम्प्ट करते हो मेरे इंटरेस्टिंग एरियाज में जाने का, लेकिन मैं चाहता नहीं हूं, ठीक है। तो अभी फोटॉन्स और ये सब में नहीं जाना है, ओके। अभी मैं आजकल एक दो अच्छा बुक्स भी पढ़ रहा हूं इसके ऊपर, राइट, तो बहुत ही मजा आएगा मुझे डिस्कस करने में, लेकिन मैं करना नहीं चाहता हूं। तो फॉरगेट फोटॉन्स, solar light radiation, but which solar radiation? Does the sunlight that you see brings heat? Right, it is brought by infrared radiation. Infrared is the heat carrying radiation of the sun, right? Light does not carry heat, light as in visible light, right? It is the infrared radiation of the sun which brings heat to the surface of earth, right? We'll talk of this later when we do radiations, but थोड़ा सा idea होना चाहिए, ठीक है। So it is the infrared radiations which bring the heat, ठीक है। So sun's heat, okay, and sun's heat gives you what all different forces. Which forces we get? We get the forces of running water, okay. So running water as you call as streams. I'm not writing rivers because it could be any running water, right? Stream, river, कुछ भी हो सकता है, छोटा छोटा streams भी है, बड़ा भी है, ठीक है। So running water. Second, winds. Wind is also a force, okay. We'll put the names of these forces later. इन सबका एक नाम भी है, एओलियन, फ्लूवियल, वो सब मैं बाद में बताऊंगा, ठीक है। Then third, glaciers. Fourth, coastal waves, they also hit the land, ठीक है। On the coast they come and hit the land and they modify the coast, ठीक है। And then fifth, groundwater, Okay, groundwater, right? So together we call all of them as exogenic forces. Exogenic forces, right? Now what is the main role? Yes, dear. Coastal waves, when we say, we are including here the effect of tides and all, the effect of currents, the effect of tides, वो सब हम यहाँ include कर रहे हैं इसी में, waves में, because all of them act as some wave coming to the coast and hitting the coast and doing whatever. ठीक है, so we are including that, right? Then so these are exogenic forces, and what do they do? The endogenic forces were making the earth's surface uneven. So what will the wind do to the mountain? Erode the mountain. What will the running water do to the mountain? Erode, break down the rocks and bring it down. What will the glaciers do to the mountain? Erode, break, bring down the rocks. यही करता है ना? So wind, glaciers, running water, ये सब तो mountain और plateau को they are trying to break and bring down. And where are they trying to carry them? किधर ले जा रहे हैं? They are finally trying to first bring them to the land level, right? Up to the level of the land, what you call as mean sea level, है ना? Something like mean sea level, plains, वहां तक लाने का कोशिश करते हैं. And then the rivers go, glaciers melt, winds might still be there. Some of the rivers ultimately go into the ocean, right? Groundwater also is, let us say, moving below the ground, and it is trying to break down the rocks and gradually move. From the coast, where does what comes into action? The waves. Right? The waves come into action. What do the waves do? They come and hit the land up to the end where winds and river waters and running water have brought any broken material, and from there the waves take on. They hit the land, and when they drag back, they carry the material with themselves. And where do they tend to carry? That is the continental marginal erosion. Okay, so this is how the waves go on hitting the land and go on breaking the coast and go on taking away the material. But we generally don't feel it, because while the material is being taken away by the coast or by the waves, at the same time wind and other things are also bringing newer material. So, and what do they do? So ultimately, one, mountains, high mountains are being broken, and where is that material being filled? In large depressions, such as the ocean itself, right? Or on the land, right? So if you have mountain on one side, just see this and try to understand. So let us say if I have a mountainous region like this, and I have a plateau region, and I have a plain region, and I have, continental shelf and abyssal plain, and this is my mean sea level, this blue line, ऐसा. Okay, so all this material from top is being broken down ultimately by the exogenic forces, and all of that is ultimately gradually going to the depression. Do we get it? आ रहा है समझ में? So while it is trying to go gradually into the depression, so basically at one place you have an erosion, and at another place, अच्छा ये अच्छा आप लोग, okay, I thought yes. So this is that mountain thing, and this is the oceanic depression, and this is the mean sea level. So basically all this risen material, the high unevenness is being broken, and it is being carried to the low unevenness. Can we get it? Right? And as this moves, so this is erosion, and at other place what is happening? Deposition. And by this activity of erosion and deposition, the exogenic forces are trying to make the earth's surface even. Uneven या even? एक प्लेस पे ऐसा है, दूसरा प्लेस पे ऐसा है. You break that risen part, fill it up. तो ultimately क्या बन जाएगा? Something like, not exactly, but ultimately you might get something like ऐसा. So this is slightly trying to make it uneven or even? Even. दिख रहा है ना? So exogenic forces, if we see, what is the main thing they are trying to do? Are they trying to break the mountains? Are they trying to break the plateaus? What is the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is to make the earth's surface even. And what is the ultimate goal of the endogenic? Are they trying to make mountains and create trenches? They are trying to make the earth's surface uneven. And earth is in a equilibrium of both, the exogenic and the endogenic. So at any given time, the earth's surface is in a equilibrium of both. Right? So do we understand the ultimate purposes of these two forces? Right? Because everything has an ultimate purpose. For example, if you travel in the metro and you have your phone open and in that you are reading Vision IAS का कोई content, तो सामने वाला देख के बोलेगा देखो आजकल का जनरेशन दिन भर फोन में लगा रहता है ना? वो तो ये बोलेंगे दिन भर ये बच्चे खत्म हो चुके हैं, है ना? उनको क्या पता आपका अल्टीमेट पर्पस क्या है? आप तो आईएएस का तैयारी कर रहे हो. ठीक है, अगर उसको कोई बता दे आईएएस का तैयारी करे, ओहो, देन दे विल गेट नॉस्टैल्जिक. हमने भी किया था. ऐसा ही होता है ना. ठीक है, हमने, आप किसी को भी दुनिया में बोल दो, चाय वाले को भी जाके बोलो, नहीं अच्छा उसको नहीं, उसका गोल अलग है. तो किसी को भी जाके बोलो, ठीक है, ठीक है, तो वो ये बोल देगा हमने भी आईएएस का तैयारी किया था. ठीक है. सो डू यू अंडरस्टैंड द डिफरेंस बिटवीन व्हाट इट सीम्स एंड व्हाट इज द फाइनल? दिस इज द डिफरेंस. ओके. So when you see any major activity on the earth, there is always a ultimate goal of everything, right? And that ultimate goal it tries to achieve by doing those small steps. Every ultimate goal is always achieved by doing small steps. This is what nature teaches you. ठीक है, बहुत छोटा छोटा एक्टिविटीज के साथ नेचर बड़ा गोल अचीव करता है. राइट? Evolution is the biggest changes in this universe are made by evolution, not by revolution. Right? And evolution is always a slow, imperceptible process. ठीक है, तो आपको आपका आईएएस का तैयारी भी वैसा ही है. इम्परसेप्टेबल, दूसरे को पता नहीं चलेगा कि ये कर क्या रहा है, बट पूरा दिन लगा रहना पड़ेगा. ग्रेजुअली अल्टीमेटली यू विल अचीव इट. ठीक है. सो रिवोल्यूशंस कांट ब्रिंग, आज मैं पढ़ डालूंगा अगला दिन फूट गया. राइट? तो यूपीएससी का प्रिपरेशन रिवोल्यूशन से नहीं, इवोल्यूशन से निकलेगा. ठीक है. सो कमिंग बैक, सो कैन वी राइट दिस? यहां लिख डालें एक्सोजेनिक फोर्सेस. वहां हमने लिखा ना, दे आर मेकिंग ट्राइंग टू मेक द अर्थ सरफेस. आई थिंक ये लिखा नहीं है, सो लेट अस राइट दिस डाउन. आई एम राइटिंग इन द डायग्राम. आई गेस मैंने डिक्टेट कर दिया ना, आपने लिख लिया है वो इवन वाला एंडोजेनिक के लिए. राइट? सो आई राइट. सो एंडोजेनिक फोर्सेस ट्राई to make Earth's surface uneven. Okay, and the exogenic forces try to make the Earth's surface, ये लिख लो, try to make Earth's surface even. Right? And any place at any given time, exogenic forces try to make Earth's surface even. And any place at any given time is in a dynamic equilibrium. Any place at any given time is in a dynamic equilibrium of these two forces. Any place at any given time is in a dynamic equilibrium of these two forces. ठीक है. For example, if I ask you what type of dynamic equilibrium is the Himalayan mountain ranges in? They are in a dynamic equilibrium where which forces dominate? Endogenic forces dominate. बोल सकते हैं ना, क्योंकि वहां mainly endogenic forces act कर रहे हैं. Whereas if I ask you the Indo-Gangetic plain, which forces are dominating there? Exogenic forces. ठीक है. So when you see different places on the earth, you can find out or you can figure out that there are different forces which are dominant force, and based on that dominant force, that region's character will be there. For example, a volcanic region, which force is dominant? Endogenic. है ना? Coastal beach, exogenic. आ रहा है समझ में? So this is how you can mostly make out by looking at places which force is active in that region, and based on that it has its outcome. ठीक है? पक्का इतना समझ में आया? Can I say? Very good. So yes. Yes. In erosion, go down is because of the gravity, है ना? But when we talk of movement, there are two type of gravity driven movements, right? One completely dependent on gravity. It is like rolling down a mountain. Okay, if you lie down on a mountain slope, you will roll down. There are no other forces acting on you. It's only gravity. But if you lie down on the road, will you roll? No. But if, let us say, huge amount of water enters in that road due to rain, and if the road is properly built, which means it is not a flat road, it has slopes, then what will happen? The water will flow in a direction and it can carry you. So is gravity moving you there? Yes. But just because of gravity will you move? No. Right? So in some cases gravity alone moves you, like free fall. In some cases gravity is assisted by a agent. I समझ में? So in some cases you need the agent. So these 3-4 things that we learned, they were agents, ultimately driven by gravity. ठीक है? Ultimately driven by gravity on one side and sunlight on the other. Which is unique? Sunlight. Gravity is not unique. Gravity acts with both endogenic and exogenic. That's why we don't talk of gravity. ठीक है? जो चीज सबके लिए बराबर है उसकी तो हम बात ही नहीं करते ना, उसको तो हम ऑलवेज टेक फॉर ग्रांटेड. नहीं? मम्मी का लव टेक फॉर ग्रांटेड, इधर उधर प्यार ढूंढते रहते हो. ठीक है, जाओ मम्मी के पास, कोई कमी नहीं है. Okay, so right. So what is the last thing that we wrote? आ गया समझ में? Dynamic equilibrium. Very good. So now, by making the Earth's surface even and uneven, these two forces, they are ultimately modifying the Earth's surface. Can we say? ठीक है? Modifying the Earth's surface. And for modify, there is a word, morph. M-O-R-P-H. Morph means to change. And what are they trying to change? The Earth. For that there is a word, geo. And when you add both, geomorph. Right? Hence these two forces together are called as geomorphic forces. Do we understand? वो word समझना है, रटना नहीं है. Why it is a geomorphic force? Because it is morphing the geo. Right? What is the morph? Change. What? The land. Which forces are changing the land? Endogenic by making it uneven, and exogenic by making it even. So both of them are geomorphic forces. Is this okay? And what are these geomorphic forces doing? They are doing geomorphic processes. Right? So geomorphic forces are doing geomorphic processes. So ये सब लिखते जाएंगे हम. ठीक है? Should we? Okay. So so we can write that. Just write in your copy. Hence, as we see, the endogenic and the exogenic forces, the endogenic and the exogenic forces, endogenic and exogenic forces are together trying to change or modify when you write modify, write in bracket morph, M-O-R-P-H. Change or modify within bracket morph, M-O-R-P-H, morph, bracket close, the earth surface. The earth surface. Within bracket geo, comma, and hence bracket close, then comma, bracket close, comma, and hence these forces are together called as, these forces are together called as geomorphic forces. Geomorphic forces. Okay, and there are two types of geomorphic forces. Two types. Which are they? Endogenic geomorphic forces, endogenic geomorphic forces, and exogenic geomorphic forces. ठीक है, endogenic and exogenic. Now, what were the endogenic doing? They are making the earth surface, making earth's surface uneven, and we have done this whole set completely. ये सब हम कर चुके हैं. They are making the earth surface uneven, and we have already done all the endogenic, right? So this part is complete. Okay. Then, what is the other one doing? It is making the earth surface, making earth's surface even. Okay, and this is something that we have to do, right? ये करना है हमें, making the earth surface even. So how do they make the earth surface even? अब ये बात कर लेते हैं. ठीक है, how do they make the earth surface even? We'll go back to that same diagram. ठीक है. So this is the region, and it has to be brought to this level like this. So how does it make the earth surface even? The exogenic geomorphic? By breaking. So can we say degrading? Degrade. Grade का मतलब पता है ना? What is the meaning of the word grade? To put at a level. In your schools and colleges you had grades. So you were always put in a level. A grade, B grade, whatever. So grade means putting at level. Okay, so when you degrade, what does it mean? Brought down. So we can say that breaking is like degradation. So one, by degrading. And second, what do we do to the low regions? We upgrade. Can we say? Upgrade. Now in geography we don't use the word upgrade, we use the word A grade. Right? What is the word? A grade. Right? Or a grade as you call it. Right? So you have D grade and A grade. Right? So some regions you degrade, some regions you A grade, and by that you are doing, ultimately what do you do? By degrading and A grading, you are ultimately grading the region. You are ultimately grading that region. And I want you to draw this the same way, because you are coming to the next 2-3 terms now. Right? So that even surface we make by grading. Grading has two parts, degrade and A grade. Hence, this process of exogenic is called as, what is the name of this process? Gradation. This is what gradation is. If you have read your chapter number 6, you must have come across this word, gradation. What is gradation? Gradation is the process of degrading the high regions and A grading the low regions. When you collectively do it, you call it as gradation. Right? Hence, gradation technically is part of which process? Exogenic geomorphic process. Okay? Gradation is an exogenic geomorphic process. Right? The way in your endogenic geomorphic processes you had divergence, convergence, transform, mantle plume. वैसा ही यहाँ पे क्या है? Gradation. Gradation is the process which levels the earth surface. Levels. How? By degradation and aggradation. Is this much clear? So do we understand gradation and do we understand degradation will have two parts? Gradation will have two parts. Aggradation and degradation. Now, should we go beyond this? इसके आगे समझे थोड़ा सा, ठीक है? Now, how ultimately is this whole gradation thing achieved? ये तो बोल दिया हमने आराम से that mountains have to be brought down and gaps have to be filled. But how do you do it? ये तो idea है ना? That for leveling the whole thing, you should bring down the mountains and you should level up the gaps. But how will you achieve this? इसको करने के लिए तो you need some process, further process. So this gradation is attained this whole gradation thing is further achieved with some more processes. Okay? Because gradation in itself won't happen. Mountain by itself will not break down and completely become flat, and ocean floors will not automatically fill up and whatever. So how do you ultimately do it? Let us try to see. If I give you this task and then you have to logically think and give me the answers. Okay, I give you this task to give me step-by-step process to get the material from here to here. And just imagine this is intact, unbroken mountain. What all processes will you do in the most efficient manner so as to break this down and bring it down and fill it up in the oceans? क्या क्या करना पड़ेगा? Because once you understand that, you completely understand the chapter number 6. और पूरा chapter में यही दिया हुआ है. सबसे पहले, and don't give me names. मुझे ना नाम से थोड़ी नफरत है क्योंकि मैं याद नहीं रख पाता हूँ. Give me the process, explain me the process. नाम हम process का रखते हैं. इसको ग्रेडेशन की जगह हम नाथुराम भी बोलते तो भी चल जाता. ठीक है ना? नाम कुछ भी रख दो. Depends on language, but you should understand the process will remain the same. So give me the process. What processes do you need here? First you have to crack the rocks, break the rocks. So should we write? इसी diagram में लिखते जाएं. Right? So the first, how do you attain gradation? How do we attain gradation? How do we attain gradation? Right? First, break the rocks. Break the rocks. Yes or no? And you have to break the rocks at the top of the mountain. Right? ऐसा तो नहीं कि उसको पहला नीचे लाके तोड़ेंगे, वो तो ऊपर है. So first you have to break it where it is. Break the rocks where they are. Where they are. That is the first process. Right? Break the rock where they are, which means they are on the top of the mountain, you break them. Second, we have to bring them down. They are on the top. So second part is bring them down. And what will you use to bring them down on a very slopey surface? I gave you the example अभी थोड़ी देर पहले. Agent का जरूरत है, आ जाएगा अगर slope ज़्यादा slope है तो. If you have a more steep slope, do you need an agent also, or will gravity itself suffice? What do you think? Gravity will suffice. ठीक है? So the second is moving down the what? Slope. Right? Moving down the relatively decent slope. It's not a very gentle slope. Right? Moving down the good slope. You can write good slope. It's not very less slope, it is a good slope. right? And hence what do you use? You use agent or you use gravity alone? Simple. So using, ये लिख सकते हैं यहाँ पे, using only gravity, using only gravity. What will happen thanks to all this? First, the rock on the top of the mountain will break by some process. First process. Second, all those broken rocks will roll down the mountain. Once they roll down the mountain, they will come down. Have you seen rocks rolling down mountains? देखा होगा आपने, उसके अंदर तो कोई विंड तो नहीं बहा के उसको गिरा रहा होता है, थोड़ा सा यू शेक इट एंड इट जस्ट फॉल्स डाउन. यस और नो? मेनी टाइम्स वी सी, राइट? लैंडस्लाइड भी उसी का एग्जांपल है. आप में से थोड़ी देर पहले किसी ने बोला था लैंडस्लाइड, तो वो तो बस ग्रेविटी की वजह से हो जाता है ना. अ मेजर रोल देयर इज ऑफ ग्रेविटी. ठीक है? सो दैट देन वंस इट कम्स टू द बॉटम, नाउ फ्रॉम देयर ऑनवर्ड्स व्हाट डू यू हैव टू डू? Let us say it comes to the bottom. Can it further move on its own? Now what do you need? You need some agent. जो हमने रोड और वाटर का बात किया था अभी एग्जाम्पल में उनके साथ. ठीक है? You need something that can drag, right? So the third one is, so let me draw the material. One in blue color, that is the broken, then it is brought down. Two, and then third, transported by, what do we call this? Transported by some agents. Agent means something additional, something like flowing water, flowing wind, flowing glacier, moving glacier, waves on the coast, something like this. Okay, then what happens while it is moving with the agent? Do you think the rock will remain intact from the beginning till the end, or will it further break down? क्या होना चाहिए? Natural process I'm asking. If you move lot of material, tons and tons of material moving in water, will it further break down on its own, or will it remain like that big rock as it started? It will break. So this is called as breaking in movement, called as breaking in motion. One was breaking where it is, second is breaking in motion. And when it breaks in motion, what happens to the material? The rock turns into, suppose initially you had the big boulders. Boulders, we understand what are boulders. Boulder is a big rock, right? I assume most of you must have been to some kind of stream sides, or in the hilly areas. When you go to the side of the stream, you have these big rocks on the side, जिसके ऊपर आप खड़े होके फोटो खींच रहे होते हो, सेल्फी टाइप करते हैं ना. एकदम रॉक का ऊपर चढ़ जाएंगे, थोड़ा ऐसा ऐसा बैलेंस बनाएंगे, फोटो खींचेंगे, दो चार स्लिप होके नीचे भी गिर जाते हैं. याद है वो जो बड़ा पत्थर जिस पे आप चढ़ते हो, दैट इज अ बोल्डर. जस्ट टू गिव यू एन आइडिया कि बोल्डर होता क्या है, राइट? दोस बिग रॉक्स. और इफ यू रिमेंबर दैट शोले का सीन वेयर गब्बर सिंह इज वॉकिंग ऑन दैट बिग रॉक एंड हिज ऑल इज सांबा थांबा आर सिटिंग ऑन बिग बिग रॉक्स, वो भी बोल्डर था. ठीक है? सो बोल्डर इज अ बिग रॉक, राइट? Now when you break the boulder, it turns into smaller rocks. So you have big boulders, then you have rocks. Rocks are smaller. Rock is something that you try to lift, right? अपना दोस्तों के साथ मिलके होता है ना, देखते हैं ये पत्थर उठाते हैं नहीं. ठीक? So that is a rock. Then smaller than that, when it further breaks down, pebbles. Pebbles, have you seen? Pebbles are those round rocks which you find on the floor of streams. ऐसा गोल गोल पत्थर होता है ना, they are pebbles. Then further, when they further break down, gravel. They become gravel, which is coarser than sand, right? So it's the same rock, it is just breaking. So from mountain to boulders to rocks to pebbles to gravel. After gravel, when it further breaks down, sand. When it further breaks down, silt. Silt. Okay? And then when it further breaks down, clay. So it's the same thing. It's just breaking. So what is breaking the rock from the boulder to the clay? Breaking in motion. ठीक है? ये सिर्फ ब्रेकिंग इन मोशन में होते होते यहां तक पहुंच गया बेचारा. डू यू गेट इट? राइट? तो ऐसा, यू नो, फ्रॉम बोल्डर टू क्ले, it is completely broken in. So where do you find the boulders? In the beginning of the streams, just at the mountains. And where do you generally find the clay? At the deltas. when the river is going into the ocean, maybe a few 100 kilometers before that, you start finding the clay, that finer clay. Clear hai? Do you understand that sequence? So from boulder to clay, it's nothing but the same material. It is just being grounded finer and finer and finer. And what breaks it finer and finer? Broken in motion, right? So this is the fourth process, right? वो भी यहीं लिख लेते हैं. And without motion, this breaking will not happen. We call it as breaking in motion, giving finer particles, giving finer particles. And for proper deposition and a very leveled surface, what type of particles do you need? The finer the particle, the more uniform the surface will be. I hope you understand this. And suppose one side you have a boulder surface, and you have a pebble surface, and you have a clay surface. Which will be more smooth? The clay surface. So can you imagine how by breaking it is preparing for making the surface even and very smooth? Clear? Right? So finer particles broken, this is the fourth process. And then finally all that material goes into what? Into those depressions. You might have depression anywhere. Ocean is the ultimate depression. Okay, but before that ultimate depression you might have other depressions also. You might have a depression in a plateau. You might have a depression in the plains. कहीं पे भी हो सकता है. Valley is also a depression. Just below the mountain. Valleys होते हैं ना. So valley is also a depression. Then you might have a plateau depression. You might have a plain depression, and ultimately you might have a coastal oceanic depression. That's the ultimate. Okay, in the end. Clear? So which is the fifth process here? Deposition. Settling down or deposition, right? Settling down, right? Settling down. So once you do all of this, what do you ultimately get then? You get a nearly even surface. ऐसा? Right? Ultimately this might give us a graded surface, gradation. So gradation achieved, right? We can say final graded surface or leveled surface or graded, gradation achieved. Is this okay? Yeah, so the answers on that online thing, all the answers are right. Some of you have asked smaller questions, but they are already answered, I think. Good. So do we get this? So now if I ask you to conclude, how is gradation achieved? 5 processes. Which are they? How is gradation achieved? This gradation. Gradation itself was an exogenic process, which included aggradation and degradation. But how is gradation achieved? By 5 processes, right? So we can conclude here, and I would like you to conclude this way, but just let me start writing and you can maybe also write. Hence, simply said, gradation is achieved by, leave a space like this for writing the name, which includes how many processes? 5 processes. The first one, breaking at, लिखा है ना हमने, breaking where it is. There is a name for that process. उसका एक नाम है. This one, breaking the rocks where they are. Now let me see how many of you have read your GC Leong or NCERT. Chapter number 5. 5 नहीं, 6. नाम क्या है इसका? मतलब I'm not asking you. I'm asking you, let me see. That's so if you give me the right answer, I'll be pretty happy. नहीं दोगे तो भी I'm very happy. That's okay. My happiness does not depend on you. बोलो, louder. Weathering. Very good. Okay, this process is called as weathering. This is what weathering is. Weathering is breaking of the material where they are. Weathering, right? Which includes weathering, which means, what is weathering? Weathering is nothing but the first thing that you have written. Breaking the rocks where they are. That is called as weathering. Okay, so there is a name to that process. The name is weathering. Okay. Then, what is the second process called? What have you written in your second one? Moving down using good slopes because of gravity. What is the name of that given in your... Louder? Very good. Mass movement. This is the benefit of reading your NCERTs. Right? So the class will help you connect the dot. You bring your dots yourself. ठीक है, अगर आप अपना डॉट्स लेकर के आएंगे तो क्लास में कनेक्ट करना आसान हो जाएगा. राइट, सो दिस इज कॉल्ड एज मास मूवमेंट. ठीक है, देन व्हाट इज द थर्ड प्रोसेस? तीसरा क्या है? हाँ, व्हाट हैव वी रिटन द नेम ऑफ द थर्ड प्रोसेस? लिखा है कुछ? ट्रांसपोर्टिंग बाय सम एजेंट. व्हाट इज दैट कॉल्ड एज? ट्रांसपोर्टेशन. दैट इज कॉल्ड एज transportation. And what is the difference between mass movement and transportation? In both there is movement. But what is the difference? In one it is only gravity or primarily gravity. The second it is primarily the agent. Okay, gravity assists in the second, agent assists in the first. Right? So moving agent might assist, but the main movement is due to gravity when you call it as mass movement. In the second one, transportation is done by something, right? So that is the agent. Gravity might just assist. आप assist और main role तो अंतर समझते हो ना? Supporting actor, main actor. फिल्म फेयर देखते होगे, कोई ना कोई फेयर तो देखते होगे, है ना? तो उससे समझ, मतलब there is a supporting actor role and there is the main actor role, right? तो mass movement का main actor कौन है? Gravity. और transportation का main actor agent. ठीक है, गुड. देन फोर्थ वन, व्हाट डू वी कॉल द फोर्थ वन? वो है क्या, नाम क्या है? द प्रोसेस. व्हाट इज इट? वी हैव रिटन ना समथिंग. ब्रेकिंग व्हाइल इन मोशन. व्हाट इज द नेम? दिस इज इरोजन. ठीक है, आप लोगों ने शुरू से ही इरोजन बोला है 3-4 बार. हाँ, लाइक दैट इज लाइक पब्लिक वोटिंग. सबको इरोजन ही बोलेंगे. हर एक रोल का अवार्ड हमको इरोजन को ही देना है सर. ठीक है, बेस्ट एक्टर, बेस्ट सपोर्टिंग एक्टर, बेस्ट एक्ट्रेस, सब कुछ एक ही को दे दो सर, इरोजन को. ऐसा नहीं है. ठीक है, नेशनल फिल्म फेयर अवार्ड है. फिल्म वैसा वाला नहीं है कि बस किसी एक को ही दे दिया. सो दिस इज कॉल्ड एज इरोजन. सो इरोजन इज अल्टीमेटली नथिंग बट ब्रेकिंग व्हाइल इन मोशन. ओनली दैट प्रोसेस इज कॉल्ड एज इरोजन. ब्रेकिंग व्हाइल इन मूवमेंट. ठीक है, इरोजन डज नॉट मीन ब्रेकिंग ऑन द टॉप, गोइंग डाउन द स्लोप. वो सब इरोजन नहीं है. ब्रेकिंग व्हाइल इन मूवमेंट. सो व्हेन यू ब्रेक समथिंग, राइट, ड्यू टू मोशन, दैट इज इरोजन. देन फिफ्थ वन, लास्ट वन, डिपोजिशन. सो दीज आर द 5 processes which help you attain gradation, and there is a name for all these 5 processes. इसका नाम कौन बताएगा? वेरी गुड. ठीक है, सो दिस इज द लाइफ टाइम अवार्ड. डेन्यूडेशन मिलता है ना, फाइनल लास्ट में देते हैं लाइफ टाइम अवार्ड. वो डेन्यूडेशन है. ओके, डेन्यूडेशन एंड ग्रेडेशन आर नॉट सेम. पूछो क्यों? व्हाट आर द पार्ट्स ऑफ ग्रेडेशन? A gradation and degradation. And what is denudation? Parts of denudation. So do you understand the difference between the producer of the film and the director of the film? Are they same? ठीक है, so gradation is like the producer of the film. उसका काम है फाइनल प्रोडक्ट मिलना चाहिए कैसा भी दो. डायरेक्टर का काम क्या है? हर एक सीन को प्रॉपरली डायरेक्ट कर करके film banana. So that is like the denudation. Clear? So there is a fine difference between the two. Fine difference. When you just say makers of the film, तो कुछ भी चलेगा, denudation or gradation. But the finer difference is gradation means only aggradation or degradation. How you attain it, the gradation does not say. Who tells or what tells you how you achieve it? Denudation. Denudation gives you the full picture, step by step. ठीक है? Yes, dear. Denudation is not the catalyst. Denudation is the final process. Denudation is the collective thing. Right? The collective, all the steps together is denudation. Bringing the actor, bringing the cameraman, bringing the, ठीक है, सब कुछ, screenplay, वो director का काम है. Right? So denudation is the, so this is the fine. So now you have 3-4 terms, because why I spend slightly more time here is, because I generally keep getting this doubt. Sir, what is geomorphic process? What is denudation? What is gradation? What is weathering? What is erosion? Clear ही नहीं होता है. ठीक है? So now can I assume you know the finer difference between all of them thanks to these diagrams and that, you know, the story जो हम साथ साथ picture film fair चला रहे थे, तो उन दोनों से थोड़ा clear हो गया. Okay, good enough. So should we go beyond? पक्का. So thanks to all this, ultimately what is attained? Geomorphic processes. Geomorphic processes include endogenic, exogenic. Exogenic includes gradation. Gradation includes denudation. Denudation includes 5 processes. So अब ये हमें पढ़ना है आगे. Right? We have to read about weathering. We have to read about mass movement. All of them. Once we do this, this whole land-related issue will be over. ठीक है? These are your chapter number 6 and 7. So अभी हमने 6 का main aspects कर लिया है. Now we have to gradually move to 7. ठीक है? But 6 में there are some finer things which we need to fine tune, तो वो अभी कर लेते हैं. But just before that, is it time for a break? नहीं, अभी है 7-8 मिनट. So in these 8 minutes, I would like to add up one last topic, which is your chapter number 5. वो हम बस 8 मिनट में खत्म कर लेंगे. It won't take more time. Should we? And then I give you a break. ठीक है? So why am I doing this chapter number 5? Because it is not that it is related to this. Okay. And this is the right time to understand it, because then later on we are going to understand different types of rocks. I'll be using those words, igneous rock, sedimentary rock. So you should know. Okay? Very good. So let us come to rocks and minerals. Rocks and minerals. So just above that rocks and minerals heading where you are writing, you should write, we will be continuing with exogenic geomorphic processes after rocks and minerals. ये लिख लो, नहीं तो सोचोगे खत्म हो गया. We'll be continuing with exogenic geomorphic processes after rocks and minerals. Okay, so in rocks and minerals, the sequence that we'll try to understand is, please see here and try to go on slightly understanding with me, and then we can continue. So if I ask you how many natural elements are there on the earth? Elements we understand. We have done this basic discussion in the first class. Elements are the building blocks of the universe, and hence they are also the building blocks of the earth. So how many natural elements are there? मतलब वो unnatural को छोड़ दो साथ में. Include them. So 118. So we have 118 elements that we find on the earth, right? But do we find the elements like that? हमको ऐसा ही मिलता है एलिमेंट? No, we find them as some natural occurring form, है ना? कुछ natural occurring form के जैसा मिलता है, right? Because all of them are not naturally occurring like that. You don't find iron, ऐसा iron तो मिलता नहीं है. You find iron oxide, right? You find aluminium oxide, है कि नहीं? हमको सब चीज का ऑक्साइड, फॉस्फेट, सल्फेट कुछ ऐसा मिलता है, right? We don't find just that pure elements. So if you want, you can write, we generally don't find, we generally, not always, we generally don't find pure elements in nature. We generally don't find pure elements in nature. Right? Exceptions are, exception to this rule are nitrogen, oxygen, gold. Right? There are some exceptions. Right? So you do find some oxygen, you do find some nitrogen. You do find gold, just like that, pure gold. Gold is found as gold. ठीक है, वो मूवी आया था ना कौन सा, KGF, उसका फर्स्ट सीन याद है? फर्स्ट सीन क्या दिखाते हैं उसमें? और गोल्ड माइन के अंदर एक स्टोन का बीच में पतला सा गोल्ड का लाइन है, वो उसका स्टार्टिंग सीन है. गोल्ड इज एक्चुअली फाउंड लाइक दैट, राइट? इफ यू वांट टू सी हाउ गोल्ड लुक्स लाइक, वो मूवी देखना है, पूरा नहीं, सिर्फ फर्स्ट सीन. ये नहीं एक गोल्ड देखने के लिए पूरा 3 घंटा KGF देख डाला, फिर बाद में बोला कि KGF 2 भी देखना है. ठीक है, सो वो सब बाद में आएगा. सो that in that first scene they have shown that a very single streak of gold they have shown between rocks, right? So gold is found like that. Gold in nature also you find like gold only, it will shine. Okay, so we don't find elements as pure. Then how do we find them? We find them as some compounds, right? We naturally find them, in nature we find them as compound, and not a single compound. We find them as a mixture of compounds, right? We find them, so we can write elements are found naturally as a mixture of compounds having fixed, please do write the whole thing, mixture of compound having fixed chemical composition, having fixed chemical composition. A mixture of compound having fixed chemical composition. It's not a mixture where the chemical composition is not fixed. It's a mixture where the chemical composition is fixed, right? And physical, fixed chemical composition and physical characteristics. Even the physical characteristics are fixed, right? Fixed chemical composition and physical characteristics, right? Now what do we call this mixture of compounds having fixed chemical composition and physical characteristics? We call them as minerals. They are called as minerals. So this is what mineral is, right? These are what minerals are. So in nature you find minerals. In nature you don't find compounds. In nature you don't find elements. In general you find minerals. Is this okay? And minerals can have different state. Minerals can be, one, gaseous, second, liquid, third, solid. You can have all the 3 types of minerals, right? Minerals can be gaseous, liquid and solid. Can you give me an example of a gaseous mineral? Gaseous mineral, natural gas. आपने नाम सुना होगा नेचुरल गैस, CNG. तो उसका C हटा दो, तो जो NG है नेचुरल गैस, दैट इज अ मिनरल गैस. इट्स अ मिनरल गैस having primarily methane, right? The prime composition of that mineral is methane. It's not only methane, primarily methane, right? So natural gas is primarily methane. Methane in nature we find in the most purest form as natural gas. ठीक है, methane CH4, but natural gas is not only methane. It is methane plus something, right? But mainly methane. Do we get another mineral gas? Petroleum gas, which is primarily propane and butane, right? So petroleum gas is another gaseous mineral, right? So ये लिखना है नाम. I want you to write down these things. Gaseous minerals such as natural gas, primarily methane, petroleum gas, primarily propane and butane. Propane is C3H8, butane is C4H10, methane is CH4. ठीक है, CH4, methane CH4. आपका ऑर्गेनिक केमिस्ट्री यहां से स्टार्ट होता है, राइट? इट डज नॉट स्टार्ट विथ CO2. CO2 इज नॉट ऑर्गेनिक, राइट? CH4 इज द फर्स्ट, दैट इज द बिल्डिंग ब्लॉक ऑफ ऑर्गेनिक केमिस्ट्री. ठीक है, सो मीथेन, प्रोपेन, ब्यूटेन, ये समझ में आया? नाउ गिव मी अ मिनरल ऑयल, सॉरी मिनरल, लिक्विड मिनरल, वो मैंने आंसर ही दे दिया आपको. द मिनरल ऑयल, क्रूड ऑयल, दैट इज अ मिनरल ऑयल, वो भी मिनरल है, राइट? सो व्हाट यू कॉल एज क्रूड ऑयल, क्रूड ऑयल, राइट? आउट ऑफ विच व्हाट डू वी डिराइव? वो रिफाइन करके रिफाइनरी में डाल करके, एंड यू बिकम रिलायंस. ठीक है, just to get you, matlab, an idea, right? So when you refine that crude oil, you get petroleum, diesel, right? Air turbine oil and all that, right? Aviation turbine fuel as you call it, right? Then बहुत कुछ मिलता है उसमें से, right? इतना लंबा list है, we'll do that when we do industries, not now, right? So that is crude oil, right? From which we get petrol, just for you to understand, right? And then solid minerals. How do you find solid minerals? Very good. All the rocks are solid minerals, right? So all the rocks that you find in nature are nothing but solid minerals, right? तो अभी आपको समझ में आया रॉक क्या होता है? Rock is the solid mineral. What is the mineral? It's a fixed composition, chemical composition mixture of what? Elements. Clear है? Right? So element, compound, mixture, mineral, rock. यहाँ तक पहुंच गए, right? So when you talk of most of the rocks, now please do write this in your copy, that almost all of the rocks, almost all the rocks, within bracket 98%, almost all the rocks within bracket 98%, bracket close, in the crust are made up of silicon, aluminum, iron, calcium, sodium, potassium, and magnesium. कितना एलिमेंट हुआ? Did I give you 8? 7. All of them making oxides generally. All of them making oxides generally. All of them making oxides generally. Generally. ठीक है? So how many elements? 8. 7 plus oxygen. तो कितना एलिमेंट हुआ? And which is the most abundant mineral element in the crust? Oxygen. Because of वो जो लास्ट लाइन आपने लिखा है, इसीलिए मैंने लास्ट में दिया है. All of them making mostly oxides. ठीक है? So if all of them are making oxides, then what is the most abundant? Oxygen. In the crust, the most abundant element is oxygen, but not as oxygen, but as oxides of different element. Iron oxide, aluminum oxide, different oxides we have. Clear? Is this okay? Good. So I hope we understand rocks. Now write down further. Next line. If a given rock has high proportion of if a given rock has high proportion of an economically desired element or mineral, if a given rock has high proportion of economically desired element or mineral such as iron, aluminum, magnesium, high proportion of this, high proportion of iron, high proportion of aluminium or magnesium or whatsoever, like all these, bracket close, then such a rock is called as, what do we call such rocks as? Mining engineers नहीं है यहाँ पे, ores. We call such rocks as ore. ore होता है ना, ORE, ore, iron ore, सुना होगा आपने, एल्यूमिनियम ओर. तो ओर क्या होता है? ओर इज नथिंग बट अ रॉक हैविंग हाई प्रपोर्शन ऑफ अ डिजायर्ड एलिमेंट. Any rock having high proportion of a desired element is called as a ore. So iron ore and all. Because if you take any rock from any place, it will have iron. Right? Any rock might have iron. But the problem is that it is not economically viable to extract iron from that. जितने का आयरन निकालोगे उससे 3 गुना ज्यादा कॉस्ट लग जाएगा. So that is not an ore. Ore is something where the cost of extraction is less than the cost of the extracted material. Then you have economically extracted. ठीक है, आप एक्सट्रैक्ट कहीं से भी कुछ भी कर सकते हो. राइट आप घर का बाहर जाओ, इतना बड़ा 10-15 पत्थर उठा के ले आओ और उसको पूरा एक्सट्रैक्ट करते रहो, उसमें से भी गोल्ड निकल जाएगा. गोल्ड भी निकल जाएगा. द ओनली थिंग इज वो इतना कम निकलेगा कि जितना हमने एफर्ट डाला ठीक है उसका बराबर भी नहीं निकलेगा. अगर आप पूरी क्लास का अच्छे से एक्सट्रैक्ट करें तो आपकी बॉडी से गोल्ड भी निकल जाएगा. इफ यू रीड बायोलॉजी यू विल गेट इट. ठीक है, बट बात वही है कि उसका वैल्यू कितना है. इज इट वर्थ? ठीक है, सो और वी अंडरस्टैंड, राइट. देन सो नाउ टाइप्स ऑफ रॉक्स. Types of rocks. This is the last part. We complete it and then on a break, right? So rocks can. So sir, can any ore be mineral? Can any ore be mineral? All ores are minerals. Your question should be ulta. Can any mineral be ore? No. Right? Because it's not that from every mineral you get a desired, economically desired element. ठीक है, बट एवरी ओर विल ऑलवेज बी अ मिनरल. ठीक है, एंड वी कैन ऑल्सो हैव प्योर मिनरल्स. राइट, यू फाइंड गोल्ड एज अ प्योर मिनरल. राइट, गुड. सो टाइप्स ऑफ रॉक्स. द सिंपलेस्ट टाइप ऑफ रॉक इज वॉल्केनिक रॉक्स. वॉल्केनिक रॉक्स which directly solidify from lava. Volcanic rocks which directly solidify from lava called as igneous rocks. Igneous means fire, ignis. That word comes from ignis, which is a Greek term for fire. फायर गॉड का नाम है. ठीक है, इग्निस. सो फ्रॉम दैट द वर्ड कम्स igneous rocks. So that is the simplest type of rock which comes from direct solidification of lava called as igneous rock. So when the lava directly solidify you get igneous rocks. ठीक है. Then what might happen? Igneous rocks might weather and erode and deposit in layers. Igneous rocks might weather and erode and deposit in layers and solidify to form the second type of rocks. We call them as सेडिमेंट्री रॉक्स. सो जो डिपॉजिट लिखा है उसको आप सेडिमेंट भी लिख सकते हैं. इरोड एंड सेडिमेंट. सेडिमेंट मीन्स टू सेटल डाउन. ओके, टू फॉर्म सेडिमेंटरी रॉक्स. sedimentary rocks. Okay, so for example, granite is a igneous rock. Sandstone, limestone, they are sedimentary rocks. Shale, these are all sedimentary rocks. ठीक है, तो 2-3 नाम लिख के रख लो सेडिमेंट्री का. कौन कौन सा? सैंडस्टोन, लाइमस्टोन, shale, these are sedimentary rocks. Okay, sandstone, limestone comes from lime, calcium rich rocks. Shale, S-H-A-L-E, shale, S-H-A-L-E, shale rocks. ठीक है, shale when it metamorphoses it turns into slate. I'll give you later, don't worry. So shale हो गया, S-H-A-L-E, right? So these are different sedimentary rocks. Then the igneous rock we wrote granite, one of them. Okay. Then what might happen is the igneous rocks and the sedimentary rocks might, please do write this, might get exposed. The igneous or sedimentary rocks might get exposed. Please do write. Igneous and sedimentary rocks might get exposed to high temperature and pressure. High temperature and pressure. Hence, changing their crystal structure. Right? Changing their crystal structure. Because of high temperature and high pressure, they might crystallize into a different crystal structure, which are more stable. Changing their crystal structure, making them more hard and stable. More hard and stable. Okay, we call them as metamorphic. Morphic means change. Meta means at the grander level, bigger level. Okay, meta is bigger level. Okay, so a change at the bigger level where the whole crystal changes and the whole thing becomes more stable and hard. Metamorphic rocks. Okay, so a metamorphic rock of importance that all of you know is diamond. Right, diamond. Diamond metamorphoses from which rock? From the sedimentary rock of coal. Coal is a sedimentary rock. Right, and when coal is put under high temperature and high pressure in nature, it turns into diamond. Right, because the structure changes. The composition of both is almost 95% carbon. Right, but diamond looks very different from coal. That is because of the high pressure and temperature that it experiences. Do we get it? Itna clear hai? Right, another example of metamorphic rock is slate. Slate, which comes from shale. Right, slate rocks देखे होंगे आपने? Slate मतलब आप लोग को मैं बोल भी नहीं सकता हूँ, वो बचपन आया नहीं होगा आपका. When we used to be kids, एक वो slate आता था पतला, उसके ऊपर हम चौक से लिखते थे. आप में से कितनों ने लिखा है उससे, चौक वाला स्लेट से? आई एम रियली सरप्राइज यार. मतलब आप लोग के इस तक तो मुझे लगता था कि गायब हो चुका होगा. Very good. And your maybe your teachers were also writing on the board, right? So that was a slate board, but actually that board was not real slate. I'm so sorry to say. ठीक है, वो right? Because getting that big a piece of real slate would be a costly affair and it will be very fragile. तो जब नहीं मिलता था तब बनाते थे, but the real slates you get to see in those small slate boards. जो बचपन में ABCD लिखने को मिलता था, and then you will rub it and eat half the chalk. You know, I used to do. मैं तो बहुत सारा चौक खाता था. I used to love. मैं क्लास में भी जाके 1-2 चौक उठा के जेब में रख लेता था. ठीक है, मे बी बाद में डॉक्टर ने बोला इसको कैल्शियम खिलाओ, कमी हो गया है ये वो, बट स्टिल द जॉय ऑफ ईटिंग चॉक इज रिप्लेस्ड बाय नथिंग, है ना. सो बहुत कुछ खाया था, वो सब पे नहीं जाना है अभी. ओके, सो कमिंग बैक. So diamond, slate, I hope you understand. And then marble is also a metamorphic rock. Marble comes from limestone. Marble comes from limestone, and limestone comes from calcium. Okay? So limestone, when it metamorphoses, it gives you marble. And where does the calcium of the limestone come from? Sediments of calcium deposit. Okay? And where does the calcium deposit come from? Bones. Bones. Right? When heavy bone animals fossilified, right? Animals which had big bones, when they fossilified, such as the crustacean period in your geology, right? At that time we had crustaceans which had high amount of bones in the body. The shelled animal age. So they had shells on the body. When they fossilified, their bones gradually turned into calcium deposits, and they turn into limestone. Right? And that limestone gradually turns into marble. So this is the sequence. The way when vegetation sediments, you get coal. Where does coal come from? Fossil of plants. So fossil of plants give you, if you want you can write this. This is a very, because this will help you understand the mineral resources of the earth. Right? The fossil of plants give us fossil of plants give us coal. Coal gives you diamond. So coal, diamond, all that is from fossils of plants. Sedimented fossils of plants. They give you coal. Okay. Then fossil of animals, normal animals. Right? Fossils of normal animals such as dinosaurs, reptiles. Right? Dinosaurs, reptiles, mammals, that give you crude oil. All the crude oil comes from this. Crude oil. Right? So where do we get most of our crude oil? From this. Fossils of animals. And plants give you coal and animals give you oil. Do we get it? And where do we get natural gas from? We get it from both. The gas released from these deposits, right? The gas released from animal deposits or plant deposits, coal deposits or oil deposits is natural gas or petroleum gas. Okay? So the gases released from coal deposits, right, or oil deposits give you gases. Natural gas और पेट्रोलियम गैस. पेट्रोलियम गैस कहां से मिलेगा? पेट्रोलियम से, क्रूड ऑयल से, और नेचुरल गैस कोल से, शेल से, इनसे मिलता है. ठीक है? डू वी गेट इट? राइट? देन वेयर डू यू गेट द लाइमस्टोन फ्रॉम? कैल्शियम रिच. वो अभी आपने लिखा. द हेवी बोन एनिमल्स, राइट, फ्रॉम द फॉसिलिफिकेशन ऑफ हेवी बोन एनिमल्स एंड हेवी शेल एनिमल्स. राइट? बोन एनिमल्स एंड शेल्स. शेल्ड एनिमल्स यू नो होता है ना, वो क्रस्टेशियंस और वो सारे होते हैं, राइट, एंड दो स्नेल्स एंड ऑल, दे आर हेवी शेल एनिमल्स, राइट. सो फ्रॉम देम यू गेट द कैल्शियम डिपॉजिट. ठीक है? कैल्शियम का सोर्स वो बोन ही है. ठीक है? बोन है उसमें से. इज दिस ओके? सो द बोन्स विल गेट फॉसिलिफाइड एंड फ्रॉम दैट यू गेट. नाउ व्हाट एल्स? नेचुरली पोटैश, फॉस्फेट. वेयर डू यू गेट द पोटैश एंड फॉस्फेट फ्रॉम? पोटैश वर्ड कहां से आया पता है? Potash. How is the word derived? Potash means the ash of pot. And what is that pot? Pot were big earthen pots in which we earlier used to burn vegetation. From that, when you burn the vegetation, vegetation normally have highest amount of carbon and the second highest is potassium. So when you burn the vegetation, when the carbon is gone, what is left behind? The ash is nothing but rich in potassium. That's why you call it as potash. Okay? So that was the traditional source of getting potash. Right? So where do you get the potash from? The potash normally comes from, again, vegetation deposits. Right? If you want, you can write. The potash, most of the potash mineral rock, the potash mineral mines, they are from vegetation deposits. Vegetation deposits. Mostly burnt vegetation deposits. Right, so the forests might burn and the sediments might layer and then they get sediment, you know. Just imagine this way. So you have forest fires. Forest fires have been there on earth for millions of years. Okay, so the forest fire will happen, the forest will turn into ash and then it might get sedimented and then it will turn into rocks. So when you dig to those layers where forests have burned and you get potash. And other salt deposits, so potash bhi samajh mein aa gaya. Then other salt deposits such as sulfur and all we get from marine, what you call as lake deposits, right? Lake deposits. So when lakes got sedimented, from that you get sulfur deposits, sulfates and all. ठीक है? Lakes. So if ये भी लिख लीजिए. The lake sedimentation. Lake sedimentation. Large lakes in the past they got sedimented and turn into rocks, right? So lake sedimentation, that gives you other phosphates and all this we get from that. That's the chemical in the material. जैसे आपका bone किसका बना है? So when it will become high concentration, आपका body किसका बना है? What is one of the highest content in your body? Carbon. ठीक है, वो सारा का सारा ऑर्गेनिक केमिस्ट्री है. बट होता क्या है इसमें से जब आप वाटर कंपाउंड निकालते जाते हो तो कार्बन कॉन्सेंट्रेशन बढ़ता जाता है. हाइयर द कार्बन कॉन्सेंट्रेशन हाइयर द कैलोरिफिक वैल्यू. दैट्स हाउ यू रेड इट, है ना. किसी भी फ्यूल के अंदर हम क्या देखते हैं? कैलोरिफिक वैल्यू. कैलोरिफिक वैल्यू इज द अमाउंट ऑफ एनर्जी इट विल गिव. व्हाट गिव्स यू दैट कैलोरिफिक वैल्यू? द हाइयर कॉन्सेंट्रेशन ऑफ दैट ऑर्गेनिक केमिस्ट्री वाला बॉन्ड्स. व्हेन दे ब्रेक दे गिव यू एनर्जी. एक्सोथर्मिक रिएक्शंस है ना. बट लेट मी नॉट टेक यू इनटू केमिस्ट्री, वहां जाने की जरूरत नहीं है. हमें बिल्कुल सिंपल सा चीज समझना है, राइट? हमें समझना है मिनरल्स आए कहां से. तो आपने कौन कौन सा मिनरल समझा? कार्बन रिच मिनरल कहां से आया? प्लांट और वेजिटेशन से. ठीक है. कैल्शियम कहां से आया? बोन रिच एनिमल से. पोटैश कहां से आया? बर्न्ड फॉरेस्ट डिपोजिशन से. सो इस तरह से, सो वेन एवर यू लुक फॉर मिनरल्स इन नेचर, फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ यू वांट टू डू माइनिंग, तो आपको पता होना चाहिए विच रीजन रॉक इज मेड हाउ. इफ यू नो द रॉक फॉर्मेशन, you will know in these rocks we can find this mineral. That way mining becomes easy. ठीक है. तो माइनिंग का बैकग्राउंड क्या है? You have to understand how rocks are made. If you understand the rocks and their base, you understand where what should be found. ठीक है. That's why I gave you this. So I hope this much is clear, right? So one, we understand what are the three types of rocks: sedimentary, igneous, metamorphic. Then we understood different types of metamorphic rocks and some sedimentary rocks, the calcium rich, the carbon rich, the potash rich. ये सब थोड़ा मोड़ा समझा हमने यहाँ पे. ठीक है ना. And where will I find coal? Where will I find oil? Right? So can I assume थोड़ा तो समझ में आया ना? Okay, good. So with this that rock part is over. Now the names of rocks I want you to read from that chapter 5. वो कर सकते हो? Different types of sedimentary rocks, different types of metamorphic. तो नाम ही है, लिखना है, लिख लेना. ठीक है. Conceptual thing is over. Okay. So do that chapter 5 yourself. Now after the break, I'll come back to. एक second. After the break, we'll come back to that exogenic geomorphic process में हमारा denudation. We have to directly come back to denudation and start with weathering. So different types of weathering, different types of mass movement, different types of transportation, erosion, ये सब करेंगे. And then finally we'll see the formation. अच्छा, one more thing. Once I'm done with these denudation thing, then the next thing is different formations because of exogenic. जैसा endogenic का formation हमने किया, mountains, trenches, etc. Exogenic also do formations. Where are they given? Formations of exogenic, we call them as landforms. Any formation by any geomorphic process is called as a landform. Any formation by any geomorphic process, endogenic geomorphic process or exogenic, we call it as landform. So where are the landforms given? Chapter number 7 of NCERT. It gives you the different landforms of exogenic processes. 5 processes, 5 types of landform. River landforms, glacier landforms, desert landforms, coastal landforms, and groundwater landforms. They are given. So that chapter number 7, and then in GC Leong you have 5-6 chapters for this. Don't do GC Leong, at least do NCRT chapter number 7 for your exam. Okay? That whole chapter I will not do for you. I will do only the river landforms. Why? Because they are the most complex, most conceptual. Once you understand that, rest you can read yourself and understand. Okay, so we'll do that river landform, and with river landform we'll do India, Indo, Ganga, Brahmaputra landform. वो भी हम साथ साथ बना लेंगे. The way you did Himalayas, यहाँ पे we'll do Indo, Ganga, Brahmaputra plains. ठीक है, so this is the target for today's class, and maybe next class half the class. Right, so I would expect you to read this much, chapter number 7, at least the river landforms, and come to the class, so that in the next class we can do that. Remaining chapter you have to do on your own, and after that we move to climate. Okay, is this okay? So take your 10-minute break, come back in 10 minutes, we start with denudation. हाँ जी, आप बोलो तब तक. बन सकता है, किसी से भी कुछ भी बन सकता है, वो डिपेंड करता है कि उसमें प्रोसेस क्या हुआ है. इग्नियस अगर बन सकता है, अगर वो मेल्ट हो गया तो, अगर वहां पे ही वॉल्केनिक इरप्शन हो जाए, मेल्ट हो जाएगा. मान लो वहीं पे वॉल्केनिक इरप्शन हो गया, कोई भी किसी में भी जा सकता है, प्रोसेस पे डिपेंड करेगा. मैम, एनी डाउट यू वांट मी टू टेक अप? एनीथिंग ऑनलाइन? नथिंग? यप. ओके, should we start? राइट. नहीं, म्यूजिक के साथ क्लास अच्छा नहीं लगता है. ओके, सो there are two more terms, I think one more term given in your NCERT, which is diastrophic movement. है ना? I think chapter number 5 में दिया होगा somewhere, diastrophic. Right, so I have to make you understand what is a diastrophic movement also. हाँ जी, डाउट है कुछ? इससे जरूरी है? अच्छा, बोल डालो, कोई बात नहीं, वो मैं डिसाइड करता हूँ. Denudation depends upon lot many things. We'll come. When we start denudation, you will get the answer. Okay. Types of rocks also would be just one of them. There are many more things. Okay. So diastrophic movement and catastrophic. There are two terms which we have to understand, which are basically part of this process. यहाँ पे, ठीक है. Now, when we were talking of the endogenic movements, all of you please be here and write at least ये word लिख लीजिएगा, because this term is there in your NCERT and you might not understand it exactly given in the NCERT. So when we talk of the endogenic movements, I hope you remember we have done two types of movement in endogenic. One was the plate movements. The second were movements such as earthquake and volcanoes, right? Now, if I ask you, out of these two movements, which one can you visibly see yourself? Because in geography you don't get to see lot many things, है ना? ऐसा mountain building आप में से कितने ने देखा है अपना लाइफ में? तो आपको बोलना चाहिए सर कितना लाइफ का बात कर रहे हो. ठीक है, एक में तो देख नहीं सकते. ओके, so lot many things, the building of that or happening of that, you don't get to see in a lifetime in in geography, because in geography, as I think I said this in your class, some time means millions of years, है ना? कुछ ही समय पहले, मतलब जब humans evolve नहीं हुए थे. ऐसा बोलते हैं. Okay, so the plate movements are very slow movements, because we have written the rate. At what rate does the plates move? 5 to 15 centimeter per year, something like this we have written. And 5 to 15 centimeter or 16 centimeter per year is a movement which you can't see yourself. आपको ऐसा दिखाई नहीं देगा कि हाँ ये move कर रहा है, right? But in plate tectonic there are some movements which you can see, such as volcanoes and earthquakes. They are two movements that we get to see, literally happening in front of us. And these are very fast movements which we call as catastrophic movements, right? Because they generally are catastrophic because they are sudden, right? So in endogenic, we have some sudden movements also called as catastrophic movement, right? And then we have slow movements which we call as diastrophic. Bas itna hi hai. So what are diastrophic movements? They are the slow endogenic movements which we are not able to perceive, right? So what are diastrophic movements? You can write in endogenic movements. Maybe you go back to that endogenic part of the page, wahan likh lo, right? In endogenic movements, the very slow, imperceptible, imperceptible, very slow, imperceptible movements are known as diastrophic movements, DIA, diastrophic movements. Whereas the sudden movements, sudden endogenic movements, sudden, whereas diastrophic, DIASTROPHIC, diastrophic movements, whereas the sudden movements which we get to see, in a very short time, are also known as catastrophic movements. Catastrophic. Okay, so we have these two types of movements in the endogenic, diastrophic and catastrophic. Now come back to exogenic, the exogenic geomorphic forces and processes, right? So continuing with exogenic geomorphic forces and processes. Yes, dear. Acha, ha, right. Very good. Thank you. She brought up this point to me. I think she asked this question yesterday also, where I said, she asked her, do we only get vertical movements due to, I think, wo tha na, surface waves, right? And do the seismograph measure only the vertical movement? That was her question, and I said they measure both. They measure the body waves also and the relic wave and love wave. Okay, so the answer is perfectly fine. The seismograph measures all, but I think while dictating I said they measure the vertical movements. Okay, so vertical by vertical, I think it could mean that they are measuring this movement on the surface which is only vertical transform. But do they measure only the vertical transform? No, they measure the vertical transform, relic wave, they measure the horizontal transform, love wave, and they also measure the P wave and the S wave. Okay, so seismograph measures all four. So if you want to cut that line, vertical, what was that, movement or something, क्या word लिखवा है बच्चे? Vertical waves, vertical shaking. So just cut that word, vertical shaking, काट दीजिए. Thank you. Okay, cut that word, vertical shaking, because it's not only vertical shaking, it is also horizontal shaking. हाँ, मेरे ख्याल में हाँ. So that was the context, that in the graph you get to see that vertical thing. कुछ ऐसा vertical movement था seismograph में. हाँ, just wait. Here देखो. In this diagram, as you can see here, यहाँ देखो. You can see that P wave first, then it also shows the S wave. Okay, then it also shows the surface waves. Okay, so in the graph you can see it like this vertical thing, but is it only the vertical wave which is shown? No, it is showing the vertical wave, which is the vertical transform, the horizontal transform, as well as the P wave and S wave. In the graph we only see vertical, so that vertical thing is the amplitude of the wave. ठीक है? Is this clear? So vertical क्या है इसमें? The amplitude, right? और ये हमारा surface wave पूरा measure करता है, ठीक है? और body wave भी करता है, जैसा आप पहले देख रहे हैं, ठीक है? Clear? So hopefully this doubt is clear now. Okay. Now coming back, exogenic geomorphic processes. Ma'am, I think there is a question you have. That's the question you have put, ma'am. Nikunj, ठीक है. Just a moment. There's a doubt. Many websites include EIA, DOV claim that crude oil are formed from dead plants and animals. Okay, so there's a question which says that, sir, the crude oil formation is given by dead plants and animals lived in marine environments before existence of dinosaurs, saying oil and natural gas do not form from the fossilified dinosaurs. I'm a bit confused, please clear. We'll come to this when we talk of the mineral resources. Ma'am, just respond this to him or her. We'll come back to this when we talk of the mineral resources, because when you see your chapter number 1 of physical fundamental वाला book, in that the geological time scale is given. I think मैंने ये आपको पहले ही बताया है. Geological time scale देखा है आप में से किसी ने? Chapter number 1 का end में दिया हुआ है, where you have all these periods given as Pleistocene and Pliocene and all that, right? And crustacean is also a period given, and before that you will find a period given as Carboniferous. So if you want to write in one line, we can write, Nikunj, this is for you, that all the energy minerals that we find, okay, whether it is the coal or it is the crude oil or whatever, it comes from that Carboniferous period, which was in the phase of the evolution of most of these animals. Carboniferous was when animals were already there on the planet. How they formed is something that we have to discuss. We'll discuss that in the minerals wala part when we come to human geography of the world. Okay? But where do we get most of the oil? Because carboni, that word itself tells you. We have named it as Carboniferous because it is carbon rich. ठीक है? हेमंत, कुछ problem हुआ? Carboniferous means carbon rich period. So that was the period in geology when we had carbon rich minerals, right? Such as the crude oil, the natural gas or the coal, right? So all that fossilification happened in that period. We'll talk of that later, ma'am. Okay? क्या दिक्कत है हेमंत? ठीक है? Okay, so coming back, exogenic geomorphic forces and processes. In this, we directly come to denudation and write from here. So this is where we are starting from. Okay, denudation part. So what is denudation? You write one line about denudation first and then we move on. Denudation in itself means the process of leveling up, means the process of leveling up or denuding or leveling up involving the five agents of denudation, and also the 5 processes of denudation. 5 agents and 5 processes of denudation. as discussed below. Full stop. Denudation achieves gradation of the surface. Denudation achieves the gradation of the surface. This is the relation between denudation and gradation, right? Achieves the gradation of the surface. Okay, so first part, the processes of denudation. The first one, weathering. Right? So weathering, what do we mean by weathering? Weathering simply means there is a lot of writing now that we have to do, because understanding wala part हम mostly कर चुके हैं, right? तो सब लिखते जाते हैं जल्दी जल्दी so that we have it in your copy. Okay, weathering simply means breaking in situ. Breaking in situ, which means on site. Breaking in situ. आ रहा है बोर्ड पे? situ is on site. ये एक टर्म है, in situ, which means on site. वो situ C लेटर नहीं है, SITU है बोर्ड पे. ठीक है, in situ means on site. ठीक है, ब्रेकिंग. अच्छा, आपने C2 ऐसा ही लिख दिया है, कार्बन का मॉलिक्यूल बना डाला विदाउट देखे कि उसका सही में ऐसा बॉन्डिंग होता भी है नहीं. साइंस का इतना टेरर हो गया ना हमारा लाइफ में, कुछ भी आता है हम क्वेश्चन ही नहीं करते, अंधा फॉलो हो जाते हैं. बिल्कुल ठीक है, होता होगा कुछ ना कुछ. ठीक है, चलो. So, ऐसा लिखना है C2, ऐसा देख लो सामने, in situ, which means on site, right? So this is without movement. It doesn't involve movement, right? It is without movement of the rock. It doesn't happen because of movement of the rock. It just happens on the site, right? And it is further divided into chemical weathering. So the chemical processes cause this weathering. Chemical weathering, like chemical weathering involving different reactions. Chemical weathering involving different reactions such as oxidation, right? So what will happen here? The mineral will oxidize further and break down, such as suppose the rock has iron, right? So what will happen when the iron part of that gets exposed? It might further rust, जैसा rusting हो गया, oxidation, and because of that it further breaks down. So just by exposure to the atmosphere, the rusting kind of thing might happen, and that might break the rock further. Do we get it? So oxidation. Similarly, you have other reactions also. Reduction reaction happening on the rock. Then carbonation reaction. Where carbonic acids might form on the rocks, right? Carbonic acid, and that will break it down. Okay, acid formation. So carbonation, we just write the names of these reactions. We don't go further into the reaction, not needed. Never have they asked you the reactions in geography for this, right? Last 35 years. तो अभी भी नहीं पूछेंगे, और पूछेंगे तो छोड़ देना. मतलब 35 साल ने पूछा नहीं, अभी जबरदस्ती उसके लिए सारा रिएक्शन रटने का कोई फायदा नहीं है. Okay, so it's not given in your course, so we don't do it. Okay, then so oxidation, reduction, carbonation, then we have hydration. Okay, hydration does not mean solution. Hydration means adding of water molecule to the molecule. Okay, for the ones who have forgotten this part of chemistry, you should write this in your copy. Hydration means adding a water molecule, and the final product might be a hard product. It might itself be a solid product like gypsum, right? Your GC Leong I think gives you that example also. Gypsum का example है, ठीक है? So adding of water molecule to form another hard molecule. Adding a water molecule to add another hard or solid mineral, right? Such as H2O addition to calcium sulfate. ये लिख के रख लो अपने लिए. H2O addition to calcium sulfate giving gypsum. Calcium sulfate plus H2O gives you gypsum. Gypsum also is a solid molecule. It's not a liquid type of molecule. ठीक है? So this is called as hydration. This is different from solution. Solution is when you dissolve. That's a different thing. ठीक है? Clear? Then next one is solution. After hydration, solution. Solution means dissolving. For example, if there is salt in the rock and you put that rock in water, what will happen? The salt will dissolve and the rock will break down. ठीक है? So solution means dissolving in water. ठीक है? Such as common salt dissolves or rock salts dissolve in water. Common salt or rock salt dissolve. Right? So this is the different types of chemical weathering. इसके लिए कोई movement नहीं चाहिए, सिर्फ reaction चाहिए. The reaction happens and the rock breaks. Do we get it? Right? Then second one is physical weathering. Physical weathering. Now physical weathering involves different processes such as temperature change, What will temperature change do? It will cause contraction and expansion, right? So contraction and expansion of rocks. Okay, so when the daytime is there, rock becomes hot, it might expand. When the night time is there, the rock might cool down, it might contract. And if it happens every day, gradually what will happen to the rock? It might become loosened and broken because every day it is contracting, expanding. Okay, something like this. Or let us say there is a part of the rock which is exposed to the sun and the another part which is not exposed. The not exposed part, that will not heat up. The exposed part might heat up and expand. So that way also the rock might crack. Okay? So this is called as contraction and expansion. And in this we have another special type called as exfoliation. These are all prelims questions, therefore you should have them in your copy. Okay? So in this chapter, if they will ask you questions, they will be around this. Okay? Exfoliation. Exfoliation means this happens in layered sedimentary rocks. Exfoliation happens in layered sedimentary rocks. Layered sedimentary rocks. Let us say you have a rock like this. Aisa. Okay. Layered sedimentary rock is there. What might happen is that the top layer might get exposed to the sunlight and only the top layer tends to expand and break. So gradually the top layer might break, this layer, okay, aisa. The part exposed to the sun, this much gets broken and the rock gets one depression. Then gradually maybe the second layer also gets exposed over a period and the second layer also breaks. Okay, like this. So as a layer by layer the rock might break. We call this kind of breaking as exfoliation. The word comes from folio. Folio is layer. ठीक है? So layered breaking, like the layers of the onion, If you take one part of the onion layer, another part of the onion layer, onion होता है ना, onion का आप layer निकालते जाइए, तो ये भी वैसा ही break होता है. So we call it as onion peeling also. ये word लिखा हुआ है आपका book में, onion peeling. The rock breaks like onion peeling. This is a physical weathering, exfoliation due to heating and cooling of layered rocks. Right? So दो words है, क्या क्या? Exfoliation, which means onion like peeling. ठीक है, good. So this is mainly due to temperature change. Then the second one is due to melting and within physical weathering. So B, due to melting and freezing. Melting and freezing of water in the cracks. Melting and freezing of water in cracks. Okay, so when the water tends to melt and freeze in the cracks, it leads to breaking of the rocks. Now can you tell me what will the water melting and freezing do? When the water freezes, what happens to water? Water has this exceptional quality that in the temperature range of 4 degree to minus 1 degree approximately, it tends to expand on cooling. Normally most of the things tend to contract on cooling, but water tends to, and because of that it tends to become wider, lighter, and so if in a crack in the daytime there is some water and in the night let us say it freezes, what will happen? The water will expand the ice and it will put pressure on the wall of the rock and break the rock. Once it breaks the rock or cracks the rock slightly, next day again it will melt, go deeper, again crack, next day again go deeper, again. So gradually, day by day, it will go on breaking the rock deeper and deeper, and ultimately it might split the rock. This is called as melting and freezing. There is another word for melting, thawing. Right? When ice melts, we call it as thawing of ice. Right? So thawing and freezing is the word. Okay? Thawing and freezing. Right? So thawing and freezing. Thaw means to melt and freeze is to, so by this the water puts pressure. Clear? And this is a very exceptional characteristic of water. If water didn't have this characteristic, life wouldn't have evolved on earth. You know why? If there was no character of this kind, let us say water also behaved the same way as others, and when it froze it would have sunken, then what would have happened? Where did life evolve? In the ocean. So let us say, just imagine, if the top layer was freezing and always sinking, gradually what will happen to the ocean? The whole ocean would have frozen. And if the whole ocean would have frozen, where would have life evolved? What does the water do by freezing? It protects the ocean by floating on top, so that the external temperature, let us say minus 20 degree, does not affect the water below. Because ice has two characters. One, this; second, it is also an insulator. Right? That's why they build igloos in the snow region, because inside those igloos it is warmer. Outside might be minus 40, inside it would be minus 10. You're still better off. Okay? So do we get it? So because of this one character of water, life has evolved. Nature does not give any character to anyone without reason. ठीक है, अपना character ढूंढो. Because that's your uniqueness in this world. Okay, come back. So see, melting and thawing done. Then come to the next one. The third is pressure. Pressure change. Right? So loading and offloading of rocks. Loading and offloading of rocks. This might also break the rocks. Loading and offloading. Sometimes because of loading the rocks might break. Sometimes because of offloading. Pressure खत्म हो गया. Earlier it was under pressure, holding tight. When the pressure went, it broke. Okay, so offloading also, right? And I think that's it. Yeah, one more is there. D, salt weathering. Salt weathering. What is salt weathering? Salts also have a tendency to swell on becoming wet. Swell on wetting and shrink on drying. So the salts in the rock, they might absorb the water, they might swell up during rainy seasons and put pressure, right? And when the rocks become dry, the salts might shrink again, right? जैसा आपने कभी salt के अंदर तो आप पानी डाल दो, सारा water absorb करके और swell हो जाता है, ठीक है? So salts in the rocks also have this character and hence they break, ठीक है? So this is called as salt weathering. Clear? So you can write salts on becoming wet swell up, salts in the rocks, salts in the rocks on becoming wet swell up, and on drying shrink, and on drying they tend to shrink. On drying they tend to shrink. Hence, put pressure on the rock and break it. Hence, put pressure on the rock and break it. Okay, so physical weathering and chemical weathering done. The third one is biological weathering. Biological weathering. Right? So in biological weathering, mainly the plants, animals and human play a role. Right? What do plants do? One, their roots. Roots grow in the rock and break it. So you are hopefully writing. Right? Biological weathering is the third type. So chemical done, physical done, then third biological weathering. Okay? In biological weathering, the roots grow in the rocks and break the rocks, which you might have seen at your home also. Many times small plants grow in the cracks in the wall and they tend to break the wall. Okay, so something like that. Roots of plant grow in the cracks and break it. So you should write this. Roots grow in the cracks of rocks and break the rocks. Roots grow in the cracks of rocks and break the rocks. Roots grow in the cracks and break the rocks. Second, they might decay. Decaying of plants also break the rocks. Decaying of plants. They might release chemicals and break. And can we call Jupiter or someone just to put the fans on? Is there a way? Yeah. ये चल रहा है आपके ऊपर? हाँ चल रहा है? अच्छा ये भी चल रहा है? नहीं चल रहा है? ठीक है. Just see in case they can come and put the ones which are off. Okay. This is a problem of a not properly ventilated room क्योंकि यहाँ पे सारे glasses लगे हुए हैं. So if the fans are not on, then CO2 level will shoot up. You will start feeling sleepy and dizzy and less interested. Okay, and then finally जो आप में से कुछ कर भी रहे हो, ठीक है? I don't blame you. I blame it to the low CO2 levels, low O2 levels and high CO2 level in the room. ठीक है? तो चलो. So done. Plant, root and decaying. Second one is animals, digging. We call it as burrowing also. Burrowing or digging. So animals tend to dig the ground and dig the rocks and break them. Digging or burrowing. Right? And again the decay. Animal waste or animal body decay when they die. That also, that decaying on the rock breaks the rock because of different chemicals released. Okay? And then what do human beings do? use rocks and break rocks. Either we use them starting from Stone Age till present, and different rocks we go on breaking in mining. So Stone Age to mining, we have been breaking rocks, right? And or using rocks. So for construction also we break rocks, right? So these are the ways in which the weathering is happening. Clear? So that's it. All this is your weathering part. Weathering over. Come to next. I know this part is slightly लिखते लिखते थक जा रहे होगे, but लिखना पड़ेगा. No way. Right? We call this as mass movement. So weathering over mass movement, and within bracket write mass wasting also. Mass movement or mass wasting. What was mass movement or wasting? Movement due to gravity. So this is the movement due to gravity. Gravity is the prime driver here. Okay. So what is the difference between mass movement and mass wasting? First, let us try to understand this. Why do we have two terms? Suppose this is the mountain, and in this you have a steeper hill, steep slope, and you have a gentle slope. I hope all of you can see. Normally the lower slopes are gentle slopes and the higher slopes are steeper slopes. Okay. So when the material is moving generally from the higher slopes, right? Removal, please do draw this also simultaneously. Removal of weathered material from higher slopes is called as mass wasting. The word mass wasting is an old term for this movement. The removal of weathered material from higher, steeper slopes. Okay. Only for that much part we used to call it as mass wasting. जुपिटर रिमोट से हाँ ये जो ऑफ है उनको ऑन कर दीजिए. Okay, so this is your mass wasting. Hopefully understood. Now what is mass movement? The removal from whole of the slope, the upper as well as the lower, is called as mass movement, and this is a newer term and a more comprehensive term, right? So removal from whole of the slope, the upper slope as well as lower slopes, is called as mass movement, and this is a more comprehensive and relatively newer term. Gosh. Right, so your NCERTs or your books generally give you mass movement, but at times they use the word mass wasting also. Don't confuse, there is not too much difference from our purpose. Okay, when you go deeper into this, weathering and all, obviously there will be more slope alignments and all those things, वो सब अलग चीज़ है. ठीक है, तो वो हमें नहीं करना है. Angle change and slope retreat, तो उसमें हमें नहीं जाना है. ठीक है. So, hopefully we understand this clear broadly. Right? Now, when you talk of mass movement, types of mass movement. Types of mass movement. Types of mass movement. So we can group them into slow movements which are imperceptible. The imperceptible slow movements. Okay, imperceptible means something that you can't perceive easily, which you can't see easily. Okay, and perceptible means something that you can easily see and differentiate between. Okay, so you have these slow or imperceptible movements, which are further divided into three types. not 3, I think यहाँ 2 है और इसका सब types है, so we'll talk of them. One is called as the creep, slow or the creep, okay, and the second one is called as solifluction. Right, so slow mass movements called as creep and solifluction. Right, we'll write about both one by one. What is a soil creep? You can write down the creep. Creep is basically the extremely slow movement due to gravity. Extremely slow, you're writing of creep. Creep is the extremely slow movement due to gravity on moderate slopes, over long period of time. Moderate slopes over long period of time. Here the presence of water might assist the movement, but the moving region is never saturated. Moving region is never saturated with water. Moving region is never saturated with water. Okay, so it's non-saturated means rainfall might happen, water might be there, but it is not like mud. Right, it will be something which is not so saturated, maybe moist, and that moistness might help that movement, but it will not move very fast and it will not be fully moist. Do we get it? Partly moist kind. Okay. Then types of creep include types. इसका types भी है वो भी लिख लो. Types of creep include soil creep, rock creep, then talus creep, Talus, T-A-L-U-S. Talus creep. Talus are broken rock material in the hills. Talus is broken, so they might be something like this big. These big chips of rocks we call as talus. Right? We generally find them in the hills only. Right? These big chips you don't generally find in plain regions. So they would be something which is in between, you can say, the rock and the gravel without becoming pebble, because pebble is formed in river courses. Right? So in the midway you will have, in the upper regions of mountain where there is no river, the rocks might first break into talus and that talus might gradually break into gravel. Okay? So talus creep is a smaller pieces, smaller chips of rocks. You can write talus is smaller chips of rocks. Smaller chips of rocks are called as talus. And then you have rock glacier creep. Rock glacier, where the rocks mix with the glacier and they tend to creep down. Rock glacier creep. Okay, then the second one is solifluction. Now, the solifluction, the only difference in solifluction is this is water saturated movement. Right? So this is solifluction is the soil creep. Solifluction is the soil creep, soil material, soil creep, fully saturated and assisted by water. Soil creep fully saturated and assisted. So that's the only difference. Fully saturated and assisted by water. So it will having good amount of water in it, and because of that it will become loose and it will tend to move down. Okay. Then come to next one, rapid movement. So slow movements done. Now rapid mass movements. So when we talk of the rapid mass movements, these are visible soil movement, visible movement due to gravity. You can visibly see the movement happening. Rapid movements, slow was imperceptible, these are perceptible or visible. Okay, and they are of again few types. So the rapid movement A or 1 is called as earth flow. Earth flow. Now we are using the word flow here because it can visibly be seen. Okay, earth flow, which happens on relatively steeper slopes. Saturated by water, steeper slopes saturated by water. So by saturation by water, it tends to act as a lubricant, lubricate the whole movement or makes it smoother. Okay, saturated by water but having vegetation on the surface, but with some surface vegetation such as grass and all. So it might have some grasses etc. on the surface, and you can see the whole thing gradually slipping off. Okay, so that is what we call as earth flow. Having some vegetation saturated by water on a steeper slope, you can visibly see that it is slipping off. Okay. The second one is called as mud flow. Mud flow. And in mud flow, the only major difference is it is on a vegetation less surface. Difference is this. The rest is same. Steep slope, saturated by water, but vegetation less surface. Okay. So on a steep slope, steeper slope, saturated by water, but vegetation less surface. Now on a vegetation less surface, the binding is much loose. Vegetation tends to bind the soil, hold the soil. Here, because there is no vegetation, it is much easier to slip, and hence you can see almost streams of mud flowing, right? So you can see as streams of mud, not muddy water but mud, streams of mud. Okay, so mud flow is visible as streams of mud flowing on the surface. It will be thicker, it will not be as fine as water, so it will be a muddy thing, जैसे है ना mud का नाला type बह रहा है, something like that. Okay, so mud flow. Then the third is called as debris avalanche. Debris avalanche, right? We call it as debris, we write it as debris. ठीक है, लेकिन बोलते इसको debris है. All right. So debris avalanche. What is an avalanche, by the way? How many of you have seen avalanches? Not in real life, obviously. मतलब ऐसा टीवी शीवी पे देखा है avalanche? कैसा होता है? मूवी में देखा होगा यार. बाहुबली किसने नहीं देखा है? सब नहीं देखा है. तो उसमें तो है ना फर्स्ट पार्ट में, और ऐसा वुड का ब्रिज, उसका एक कुछ पेड़ का एक पार्ट निकाल के उसके ऊपर स्किड करता हुआ जा रहा है। जेम्स बॉन्ड मूवीज भी नहीं देखते हो? मिशन इम्पॉसिबल कुछ भी देखा है या पैदा होते ही आईएएस का तैयारी शुरू कर दिया है? ना पढ़ते हो ना मूवी देखते हो, करते क्या हो आप लोग? मैं कैसा समझाऊं आपको? हाँ, किसमें? 300 रियलिटी में भी देखा है? आप तो हिमाचल से हो ना, इसीलिए आपसे पूछा ही नहीं मैंने। मुझको भी पता है कौन ने नहीं देखा है। ओके, सो मूवी, अच्छा नेशनल ज्योग्राफिक पे देखा होगा, कहीं तो देखा होगा यार। नहीं देखा तो आज जाके देख लेना। मतलब ऐसा बर्बाद इंसान हो आप लोग, कुछ भी पूछो। कुछ नहीं देखा है सर, हम सर आई शपथ कुछ नहीं किया आज तक। ऐसा थोड़ी चलता है, ठीक है? So avalanche is basically very fast movement of snow, right? Sudden movement where the snow tends to slip very fast on the surface. We call them as snow avalanche. Debris avalanche is different. In this, what happens is it is a movement as fast as snow avalanche, but in this the snow doesn't move, rocks move, right? So it is the small rock pieces which tend to slip on the surface, right? So it will be similar to, हाँ देखो, एटलीस्ट ऑनलाइन बच्चों ने कुछ तो देखा है लाइफ में। आप लोग ऑनलाइन ही रहो यार, आप लोग ठीक है, कम से कम उसी समय यूट्यूब चला के साथ साथ देख तो सकते हैं। ठीक है। सो इट इज अ सडन मूवमेंट ऑफ स्नो ऑन द सरफेस लाइक ग्लेशियर्स, एंड मेनी टाइम्स इट इज प्रीटी डैमेजिंग ऑल्सो। यू मस्ट हैव हर्ड, है ना, अवलांच में बहुत सारा लोग फंस गए, टूरिस्ट फंस गए। मेनी टाइम्स वी ऑल्सो लूज सोल्जर्स इन दोज avalanches. Almost every year we tend to lose. Okay, so that is a avalanche, which is a snow avalanche, but debris avalanche is something like where the rock tends to move. That's it. So it is a very fast movement of rock pieces on the slope surface. You can write this. Okay. So debris avalanche, this one, it is a very fast movement of rock pieces on steep slopes, in large volume, similar to snow avalanches, not same but similar to snow avalanches. Okay, so third, and then we come to the fourth one, which is the most important, landslides. Right, so in rapid movement, first earth flow, second mud flow, third debris avalanche, and fourth landslide. Now landslide is the most different from others. It is pretty much different from others because in all the movement that you saw till now, fast or slow, material on the slope was moving like this. ठीक है, अभी तक आपने जो कुछ भी देखा उसमें material was moving. In landslide, many times a part of the hill itself moves. ठीक है, so maybe this much part of the hill itself might move off. So this is the main difference between landslide and all the other mass movement that you have done till now. In all of them, first the material will break and then it will remain on the surface and slip on the surface. Here the surface part itself might break and slip. So once the landslide happens, the shape of the hill also might change, as you can see here. Is this visible? Understood? ठीक है. Now why does this happen? Basically अभी तक आपने whatever we have seen till now, in that the surface was getting wet like this. But landslides generally happen where you have different reasons, we'll write that. But one of the major reason is that the water tends to percolate deeper on the slope because of relatively higher rainfall. Right? So when the water tends to percolate deeper or the cracks are much deeper into the rocks, then they tend to break a piece of rock itself. or the slope itself rather than just chip on the top. Okay, so either it has to be more water percolation or it has to be deeper cracks, right? Like deeper faults on the rocks. When that happens, a bigger piece, deeper piece might break and slip off. And when it slips off, it might accumulate at the bottom somewhere, not bottom exactly, something like this. Aisa. So this is landslide. Do we get it? Landslide. So just draw that and then we write. Okay. So डन. स्टिल ड्राइंग. कुछ लोग बना रहे हैं, जल्दी से बना लो. Okay, and once you have drawn, then write down. Landslides are different from other mass movements. Landslides are different from other mass movement as in landslide, deeper cracks or loosening of material, deeper cracks or loosening of slope material might take place. Deeper crack or loosening of slope material might take place, breaking a part of the hill itself. Breaking a part of the hill itself rather than just the slope material. Breaking a part of the hill itself rather than just the slope material, as shown in the figure. Also, this is the most devastating. This is the most devastating of the mass movements because of its size. Because of size. So this is much bigger than any other movement. Okay. Landslides. Okay. So in Indian context, do write this because this question keeps coming in the UPSC many times, in the prelims and mains they keep asking you this. Okay, so Indian context of landslides. In the Indian context, we'll talk of the landslides in the Himalayas and the Western Ghats or in the peninsular India. Right? In the Indian context, landslides take place both in the Himalayas, as well as the peninsular plateau region, mostly in the Western Ghats. Okay, so we write down the causes of these two in the two region. So you make two tables, Himalayas and Western Ghats. उसके नीचे points लिख लेंगे, ठीक है? So Himalayas and Western Ghat, ऐसा करके दो टेबल बना लो. I'm just trying to connect. So one side you have landslides in Himalayas, the other side in the Western Ghats or the peninsular Western Ghats and peninsular India. Okay. So because Western Ghat is part of the peninsular India only, actually Western Ghat is the region which is parallel to the western coast of India. The relatively higher region, you can write Western Ghat is the relatively higher plateau region parallel to the western coast. Plateau region parallel to the western coast. Okay, so what are the reasons for first the Himalayan region? Why do we get more landslides in the Himalayas? The biggest reason is it is tectonically active. Right, Himalayas is tectonically active and hence rising. So as it is rising, it tends to get steeper and steeper. Right, so first Himalayas tectonically active, hence steeper. Tectonically active, hence steepness keeps increasing. Tectonically active, hence steepness keeps increasing. So Himalayas tectonically active, hence steepness keeps increasing. Okay, and what will happen because of that? The more steeper it gets, more the chance of breaking and slipping off. That is the one. That is first. Okay. Second, the different ranges have different rock characteristics. Different ranges have different rock characteristics, such as the outer Himalayas, we call it as Shivalik. Outer Himalayas are mostly loose sedimentary material. Loose sedimentary. Therefore it breaks. Loose sedimentary, therefore it breaks easily. Right, it's not very consolidated rock. Right, so loose sedimentary, hence breaks mostly during rainy season. As water will saturate it, it will tend to slip off. Right, middle Himalayas experience rains and are mix of sedimentary and metamorphic rocks. Experience rains and mix of sedimentary and metamorphic. So when you have two types of rock, one is sedimentary, one is metamorphic. The whole metamorphic might be one single block, but the sedimentary is layered. So the sedimentaries might slip off. Okay, you're leaving a big consolidated block on a loose strata. So when the sedimentary breaks, it will slip off the whole thing. Okay, so that's why it breaks. Then in the greater Himalayas, which are mostly metamorphic, tectonic movements cause big faults and cracks. So bigger pieces might break, cause big faults and cracks, as also to some extent in middle Himalayas. So suppose the mountain is like this and you have a big fault created like this, aisa. Can you imagine something like this? Right? Because it's a one single metamorphic rock, so maybe a big crack is created, something like this. So what will happen? This part will become loosened and it might break off. ठीक है, and this might happen in the greater Himalayas as well as middle Himalayas. So that metamorphic character which makes it one big block, so bigger blocks might break and crack off. ठीक है, last point, we find more rainfall in the eastern Himalayas. Hence higher saturation. Eastern Himalayas, hence higher saturation due to water and hence more landslides. Higher saturation and hence more landslides. Right, so water will tend to percolate deeper and make it more landslide prone. Which region are we talking of? We are talking of the 7 sister states, northeast plus Sikkim, up to there. So up to Sikkim we have said. Right, so that region gets more rainfall and hence we get this phenomenon. Now there are some common factors also. All the man-made causes are common factor here, such as cutting of vegetation because the roots become loose and the soil slips off, then construction, right, such as residential construction, breaking of this thing, mining, ये सब common है दोनों जगह. So I'm not giving you the common ones, but if you want you can write the common factor in both the regions. Don't write it under this, write it separately. थोड़ा सा नीचे करके लिख लो. The common factor between both the regions, the common factors of landslide between both the regions include all anthropogenic activity. Common factor in both the regions include all anthropogenic activities. Anthropogenic activities such as construction, mining, deforestation, agriculture, such as jhum cultivation and all. So you are burning the vegetation and all that. Okay, so all these are common factors. Now coming to the last part, अभी आपका peninsula बचा है. So you can write in peninsula tectonic activity is less. Peninsula, though less tectonic activity. In peninsula, though less tectonic activity, but metamorphic rock weathering creates deeper cracks. Metamorphic rock weathering creates deeper cracks. Right, hence breaking bigger pieces of rocks. Breaking bigger rocks. Second point, steeper western side of Western Ghat. Steeper western slope of Western Ghat. Steeper western slope of Western Ghat. The western slope of Western Ghat is steeper in nature. Right, because of that steepness it tends to break. It is almost a vertical wall. Okay, so steeper western side of Western Ghat, hence more weathering. Sorry, more mass movement. Not weathering, mass movement. Weathering to ho hi raha hai, but mass movement also. Third, Western Ghats get very high amount of rainfall. Very high rainfall. Western Ghats receive very high rainfall on the western slopes. Very high rainfall on the western slopes, and hence more saturation due to water. So easy breaking. And construction activity is pretty high in Western Ghats, more than the Himalayas. Construction activity. Construction, deforestation, etc. is very high in Western Ghats. Okay, so these are the different causes that we have of landslides in this region. With that, we end this part of the story, mass wasting and mass movement. The next class we start with erosion, transportation. Transportation and deposition won't take time, 5 minutes maximum, both of them total. The major time will go in erosion, that will be something like maybe half an hour, and after that we directly come to formation of Indo-Ganga plains. Now for Indo-Ganga plain there is one additional thing I want you to read. This is very important for all of you. That is chapter number 2 of India physical environment. I am asking you to read your India physical environment for the first time in the class. So India physical environment, chapter number 2, where India physiography is given. In that northern plains are given. Northern plains. Please do read the northern plains and come, because that's what we are going to cover in the next class. Once that is done, northern plains, I think then we can gradually move to climate. So that is the sequence. Okay, do we have a class tomorrow? मेरे साथ आपका कल क्लास है? Thank you. Any other major doubt you want me to take up? Nothing. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.